We welcome. You know this doesn't include a free meal. Does it? I never heard of it. Cold. We don't have a license. That happened. Well, I'd like to welcome you to the Canyon City Council meeting for March the 5th, 2018. I'd like to call to order at this time. So, that's right. Let's do the open mics. Anybody here? What we have is the first 15 minutes of the meeting, non-agenda items only, and non-ones that, because we have written requests to speak. If you would just like to come and address the council on a non-agenda item, because during the agenda you will go ahead and talk, or if you want to have the time, because we will later on have a written, you already have that, Emily, so you don't get it twice. So,
Will has
okay, Will, go ahead.
Will turned one in too.
Oh, wait a minute, Will, you turned one in. So,
This
Yeah,
is-
but you said I could talk first, so I didn't have to sit.
well, we haven't gotten there yet. The citizens' request to speak to council, the written request. These are just if you just have something you would like to talk to council about without written request, the first 15 minutes, we just open it up and you can talk. If not, we'll go right into the main meeting. Just have to your name.
Okay.
I guess not. Okay. Well, go ahead. We're going to go ahead and call this to order then. Could we have the invocation by Ryan McBride of the Catalyst Church? Would you come forward, please? Please rise.
Thank you. Let's pray. Dear Lord, we come to you this evening, first and foremost, just to thank you for a new day, for breath in our lungs, and for all of your provisions. And God, as you command us to do in 1 Timothy chapter 2, I come before you today to intercede on behalf of this group of city council members as an authority that you have established in this community. And so this evening, as different topics and different issues and policies are discussed, may you guide this group of leaders, giving them the grace and wisdom and discernment to make decisions that not only have the best interests of Canyon City in mind, but that also would bring honor to you. May it be so today, Lord. We pray all these things in the powerful name of Jesus. Amen.
Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Troutman.
Here.
Councilmember Smith. Here. Gonzalez.
Here.
Hamrick.
Here.
Jaquez.
Here.
Meisner.
Here.
Councilmember Gill is excused. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So now we have the citizens' request to speak to council. Would you just pick one on the list there, or Mr. Colon? He was anxious. There he is. Okay.
Will Cullen wants to talk stormwater fees. Stormwater fees.
Thank you. Well, my name is Will Colon. I live at 1340 College Avenue here in Canyon City. And
Can
as
you
if
get
guys
closer
didn't
to
hear
the
enough
mic,
about-
Will? Could you pull that? Just look. Can you?
A little bit closer.
There you go. There you
All
go.
right. Did you get all that?
That's good.
As if you guys didn't hear enough about stormwater 3 weeks ago, I wanted to bring it up again. Kind of an idea that I thought should be run past the city council, and to kind of maybe come up with another theory or another way to raise money for stormwater. Currently, from my understanding, the city would like to basically double the stormwater fee, which would be an average of $6 per household within the city. There's also the theory of dragging in some of the county with that, but I'm pretty sure that you couldn't find two people here in the audience that could agree on where that line should be, which would be very time-consuming and difficult to do. So another possibility would be to have a sales tax or a portion of sales tax percentage to go on top of that. Right now, I believe if the city, and Harry would have to back this number up, but I believe if the city were to increase 1%, that'd be $4 million. So if you were to increase the sales tax by 0.25%, that would be $1 million by that way of thinking. Currently, the $6 per household would raise you roughly $800,000, so you'd actually be raising more money. The cool thing about this is it's spreading out the amount of money that's collected to outside of the people of Canyon City. The whole burden does not fall on the Canyon City residents, which I think is unfair because it's not just a Canyon City problem. The problem extends into the county, as we've all talked about. So not only would people in Fremont County also be paying a portion of this sales tax, but people who come from outside Fremont County. This is a high tourism area. We have a lot of people that come here from outside the state, and they buy groceries here, they buy fuel. They're going to also be paying a part of that tax, which is nice for those of us who live here in Canyon City. In order to kind of put this in perspective, if you were to do this tax, a person here would have, or per household, would have to spend roughly not roughly, they would have to spend $2,400 per month on sales good in order to equal that $6, which you guys are proposing by doubling the stormwater fee. They'd have to spend $2,400 a month in goods in order to pay that tax. This way it spreads it out so that, if you're paying more than that, great, you're going to pay a little bit more. If you're paying less than that, you're not stuck with that amount. So this would be a more fair way to raise that money that the city needs for stormwater, which is definitely a problem here. You can just talk to my father if you'd like to know more about that. But I think this would be a great way to more fairly raise that money, and you would actually raise more money if you did a 0.25% versus the $6 per household.
Okay, thanks.
Something to think about.
We do have a meeting Wednesday. We'll be talking stormwater there, and we have also a different method of looking at the possibility of gaining money to do stormwater, so that we could talk about that too.
Yeah,
So
I just
if you-
wanted to plant the
so-
seed
Sure.
because obviously the decision falls here if you guys wanted to go forth with something like that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you all.
Thanks, Will, for coming with solutions.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jerry Fry. She wants to talk to the council about Black Hills. Jerry?
Good evening. My name is Jerry Fry. I live at 220 West Catlin Avenue. Thank you for letting me speak to you, Mayor and Council, tonight. Who among us wants to live where there's an ice cream shop? Well, I purchased one back in 2012, and I named it the Cup and Cone. It is a little business with a big power demand. And I know about demand. It is always on my bill. The concept of demand on your power bill will probably be explained a little bit more by someone else. But demand is always on my bill, and it costs me about $250 a year. My initial studies look like if my little ice cream shop were in Colorado Springs or somewhere where I could choose Xcel Energy, I might save not only the demand fee, but approximately $100 a month. That's a lot for my little ice cream shop. From the get-go, I researched and discovered options, so I implemented some of these changes, and I was able to bring my power costs down from the over $1,000 a month that I was paying initially. The shop is now 5 years old, and I am constantly looking for changes and innovations just to address my power usage. I have already replaced all lighting with LED inside and out. I've ramped up freezer maintenance. I've installed energy service devices on my panel. I've monitored my defrost schedules so that they stagger turn-on times. And I've dreamed about solar and wind. All but the last one has cost me money, but it did reduce my power usage. This winter, I also initiated my own power study during these slow months. I read the meter, took a picture of it with my camera. Then I turned off a freezer for 24 hours, took another picture, repeat, 8 times. There are not many options left to me, except to come to my city council for help to change the power landscape. Thank you for letting me inform you of the impact on a little corner ice cream shop. I would ask that you take the needed time to scrutinize what Black Hills is doing for our community as a whole before signing on with them again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jerry.
Next, we have Emily Tracy. She also wants to speak in regard to Black Hills.
Thanks, council members and mayor. I'm Emily Tracy. I've had a home in Canyon City since the late 1970s, and the house I purchased in 1978 is now my second home. First, I want to say I greatly appreciate your work on council. I know how hard you work on issues important to the city because I served for 8 years on the council from 1983 until early 1992. I'm here tonight to ask that you open up the process of the franchise renewal with Black Hills Energy. Because besides my Canyon City home, I have a home in Breckenridge. I recently compared my Canyon City electric bills to those with my Breckenridge home, where we're served by Xcel Energy, and was surprised to find that our bill in Canyon City ranges from 42% to 118% higher than the Xcel bill in Breckenridge, though my husband and I spend the majority of our time at our Breckenridge home. A group of us in Canyon City have been exploring the many issues with Black Hills. We know that the city has raised concerns with Black Hills about the periodic service outages. We would ask that you include the following issues in your discussions: the onerous shut-off policies requiring residents and businesses to come up with large amounts of money to get power turned back on once it has been shut off due to non-payment. Recent data from Black Hills indicate that 731 Canyon City households had their electricity shut off last year due to non-payment. That's more than 11% of the households in Canyon City. There is limited community or public assistance available to assist low-income homes with this problem. And as Jerry mentioned, the demand charge for businesses is a pretty substantial charge for the business electric bills of many of our community businesses. It kicks in at a much lower threshold than the demand charge for other utilities such as Xcel. Ours kicks in at 15 minutes or more of 10 kilowatts, whereas with Xcel it kicks in at 15 minutes or more per month at 25 kilowatts. So there's a big difference. That demand charge, which can be a big portion of their total monthly bill, is really a problem for businesses in our community. I would also ask, and our group would ask, that you consider a franchise renewal that's much shorter than 25 years, perhaps look at a 5-year renewal. One of the reasons we ask that is that there's a changing landscape with energy in this country, and we don't want to tie ourselves for too long a period of time without being able to accommodate those changes. I've had the opportunity to speak to several of you. We would love to be able to talk with all of you at a council work session or at the General Government Committee, whichever is most appropriate. And we also encourage you to begin dialogue with the City of Pueblo, which has been working on these issues for several years and has created a City Electric Utility Commission to examine possible future options for electric service within Pueblo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily. Okay,
Next one I have. I don't know what she's doing. They had to be turned in by 6.
what are you doing? You'll have to, up there. You got extra seats.
Next one is Donna Murphy.
Good evening, Council. My name is Donna Murphy, and when I moved here in 1978, 241 Glenmore Road, I trundled down to City Hall to vote for the council, and they said, no, you can't vote because you're in the county, you're not in the city. So I've never voted for any of you, but I admire your work anyway. I got a copy of the 26-year-old franchise agreement a couple weeks ago, and I've kind of gone through it, and I really should have called Mr. Patel to find out what kind of a revenue stream the Black Hills gives to us. I echo the sentiments of Emily on the problems that Black Hills has with demand charges, and that we pay only Trinidad, I think, pays a higher rate of electricity than we do. But I would ask the council that later on you're going to select a new city council person out of, what, 9? I think it was 8 or 9 people. And I would ask that you table your meeting tonight after, so that person can be brought up to speed. And that's all I ask. I won't take any more of your time.
Okay. Thank you, Donna.
Next is Beth Ketchmar. She also wants to speak. Beth, on Black Hills.
Hello, Beth Ketchmar, 509 Main Street, and I'd also thank all you guys for all the hard work and time and effort you put into helping our city be a better place to live. And I agree totally with the sentiments that have been expressed earlier this evening so eloquently by the 3 women concerning the Black Hills franchise. I think that the idea of entering into that long-term agreement with a company that maybe doesn't have our best interests in heart at many times would be for short-sighted at this time. I think that we need to look at the future of energy, and I agree that Pueblo has also been looking into this. I think that there's many things that hopefully we can do to cut our energy costs. As a person who pays many high bills with lots of demand charges and energy commodity adjustments, I would love to see us do a better job of addressing our electrical use. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Next, we have Kim Spechtenhaus.
Are we close even?
Spechtenhauser? No? I just said it a little slow the first time. She wants to talk about neighborhood cleanups and plastic recyclables.
And I may switch that around a little bit, because I know I don't have much time to speak. But it's a privilege being here tonight, speaking to everyone, and the education I'm learning. I am aware of the tax situation. I feel we need to recycle plastics. Also, I'm concerned about litigation on trees in the older neighborhoods, especially south of Highway 50. We had some rental property there. I called and written letters to city council, went into the buildings personally for 3 years before I got a response. And I was told, well, we no longer have a forestry department. Well, lo and behold, this ginormous tree, they estimated it to be 80 feet plus tall, split in half. A man was driving by. He was almost killed. He had to escape from a broken window in his back seat. Now, the city was kind enough to clean up the mess, but it was a harrowing experience. I mean, these old trees entwined with electrical, and it's a mess, and especially with the winds we get, and then they're old and brittle. They're not even live trees. And there's some serious litigation that needs to be done. It, could kill a child, a person. Of course, this guy got his car smashed and almost lost his life, home damage, etc. How much time I got? Okay. Also, I think I'd like to present an idea as quick as I can, if I can speed talk. Neighborhood cleanup. A 90-day cleanup, especially in those neighborhoods. There are people impaired, disabled, all alone, and elderly. They cannot physically clean their yards, and I feel 90 days is plenty of time during the right weather. And we could get volunteers to help with this issue. Because the neighborhoods down there, they're looking pretty ratty. And to me, that's an insult for Canyon City, because I love this little city. And we got a wonderful board here. So It's just something I'd like to propose. There's a lot of ways we could do it. Volunteer work is the best. I feel a 1/4% tax increase, that's all the further our family will tolerate. We feel the taxes are too high here already, and along with issues that the other folks here have brought up. So anyway, I'm out of time. Thank you for listening.
Do we have your phone number?
Yeah.
How do we contact you?
We'll enlist you in a volunteer cleanup program.
Oh, absolutely. I do volunteer work all over. I'm up in Dawson Ranch. I do the trails every other Saturday. I've done Loaves and Fishes. If we could get some of the high school students or clubs involved, it builds character. And then the results are, you know, just so welcome, especially to the elderly. And for those that are not responsible, the younger folks, you know, it teaches them some morals, I hope.
Okay, great.
So, yeah.
We're looking for that.
Kim, I would like to point out that we have been working really hard on cleaning up Canyon City.
Good.
And we definitely appreciate volunteer efforts. It's something that we have been pursuing that concept as well to help those who
Oh, that's
who need it.
great.
So
What
we're glad
about
to
the
have your number.
litigation? Why,
As far as the trees go, Harry, correct me if I'm wrong, haven't we dedicated and have been spending about $300,000 a year to take down dead trees?
250,000.
About 250,000 for how many years now?
Well, last 2 years we have spent about average of 250,000. Previous year we were spending only 50,000 a year.
So
Oh,
we've
okay.
been contributing quite a big amount of money towards taking down dead trees throughout
I-
the city because it has
Oh,
been a
yeah, it's
problem.
expensive, and I just feel we need some type of forestry department here. And I'll just, one more thing I'd like to mention. After that 3-year contact, they did hire 2 gentlemen from Pueblo to take care of this issue. They had 8-foot-long, like walkers, like clippers, just to get the limbs from hanging over the sidewalk.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Kim.
Kim?
Thank you very much, City Council.
Okay. Who's next?
We have the next one from Leanne Buffy McFadden. She wants to
Buffy.
talk about Black Hills.
Okay.
Good evening. Thank you for serving, and thank you to the staff of the council and the city for your public service as well. As a new resident to Canyon City, I am also a Black Hills customer, and having had some background in dealing with public utilities, one word I would use to describe it would be arduous. It's a complicated issue. I do feel it's fortunate that Canyon City is in a position to lead this entire region regarding Black Hills and its service. It was mentioned earlier that the franchise agreement is back from 1992, and I also, thank you to Donna Murphy, have a copy of it, and thank you to the city for getting that for us. Some people are passionate, I would say most, ensuring that people don't have their utilities cut off. There's a high positive correlation between not having electricity and homelessness. In fact, under the HUD count for homelessness in 2017, you were counted as homeless if you were living in a dwelling with no electricity. Aside from homelessness, the other big issue is the impediment to economic development. And that isn't just here with Jerry Fry and Cup and Cone here in Canyon City, but all Black Hills commercial customers throughout this region. I know that there are a lot of us that would like to participate in a process to work through the franchise agreement. You have a very big job ahead of you, and having served in public office, dealing with utilities, often we had special counsel to help us with those expertise areas. Infrastructure is another area we must address with any franchise agreement, obviously, but certainly the rates that we're paying seem to be outpacing anyone else in the state, except for what was mentioned in Trinidad. Lastly, I believe Canyon City, and I hopefully am evident of a trend of people wanting to move into Canyon City, with Saladas prices outpacing any area locally, Colorado Springs as well. I do believe we're going to see an influx of people coming into our community. We have an opportunity to be ahead of that curve and be prepared for those issues like utility shutoffs. And it can only get worse, and hopefully we can get ahead, and as our city grows, we are ahead of the curve on the issues that bring with increased growth. So thank you so much for taking on this issue. It's probably one of the biggest issues in the near future for Canyon City is this agreement, as it will last several years at a minimum.
Thank you, Buffy.
Next one we have is Rhonda Sherrato. She also wants to speak about Black Hills.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rhonda Sherrato, and I own Prospectors RV Resort up on the hill. And to mimic what the other wonderful ladies have said, there's a couple of things that I believe that Black Hills is doing that might not only be unethical, but directly against the agreement that we have with them, and that is the arbitrary deposit fees that they are instituting out of the blue. Unfortunately, I probably would think that my electric bill is 10 times what everyone else's is, and our demand rate also is exorbitant when you have campers that come home from rafting and doing their fun activities, and they all turn on their RVs. I have that demand rate that spikes significantly, and my electric bill is between $7,000 and $10,000 a month. Arbitrarily, Black Hills decided to impose a $15,000 deposit on my park recently, after 4 years of owning it. And I believe that that just may be against what we have as far as a contract with them to arbitrarily impose deposits after you've had their service for years and years. And they make it hard enough to pay the bill, let alone come up with a $15,000 deposit. I had $9,000 of my deposit paid and wasn't able to make up my full bill 1 month, and I asked to use part of that deposit to pay my bill. And they absolutely refused and told me the electricity would be shut off for all of my residents that are in there for the winter. And no one would work with me. I went down to Pueblo to physically, in person, meet with Black Hills, and I got no support, no suggestions. They told me I need to look into solar. However, solar does not adequately allow the on-demand spike because the solar that's in reserve can't meet that demand when it is turned on. So solar's not an option for me. I'm not sure which lady said wind power up there. The wind up there is just crazy, but I'm sure we'd need a permit. So to just expound upon the disgruntledness of this consumer with Black Hills, I'd like to volunteer my time. I know how this council likes to put together boards. I would love to be on a board that does the research to bring options to the table so that you aren't faced with all of the decision making. And I bet Ms. Fry and I bet a couple of Beth would be willing to be on a council board with me to bring some suggestions and some help with the resolution. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. That it? You know, the contract has run out on Black Hills. We're gonna have a contract with them. It ran out. Ran out last year. I also got stung on that. I had a 4-unit. They charged me a huge deposit on. I don't know why. We need results. We need to know. You need to not just quit tonight. You need to give us letters. You need to talk to us. You need to tell us what you want. Ultimately, it's up to you. We're not going to make, we'll make the contract. We do the legal part about it is we'll make the contract. You got to vote on it. We don't. You do. Well, I get a vote because I live here. It's not up to council. We come up with the verbiage of it, and then you vote it, up or down. But then figure out where you're going to go from there. I wish there was an alternative. I wish they'd have left the generating plant here. I sat in a meeting with them, and I was told by the president of their company, you don't understand it. We're taking it out, period. Nothing you can do about it. I didn't like it then. I don't like it now. But you need to tell us what you want, and then when it comes up for a vote, you decide what you're going to do. I wonder what they'll do. Okay?
Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to reassure the audience here tonight that we have been meeting in an executive session and having some very serious conversations about the state of the Black Hills contract, particularly with the aged infrastructure and the excessive power outages. And so this is an issue that we are taking very seriously, and we appreciate your comments tonight.
In the contract, I know right now is going to be very expensive for an interruption or even a brownout, is what you call it, because that hurts your equipment, especially your computers. Whether they sign that, I don't know, but that's one of the things I know will be in the contract. I guess I shouldn't say that.
Probably not.
Probably not. I'm a little steamed about the whole darn thing, to be honest with you. And I don't know what the alternatives are, but I'm sure we can figure it out in Canyon City. Okay? Well, there you go. Number three. Okay, we're going to ask for approval of the minutes for the February 19th, 2018 regular city council meeting and the February 22nd, 2018 vision committee meeting. Are there any corrections at this time? Mr. Meisner, what do I know?
I think it's a correction. On the council meeting minutes, page 2, item 6, it references March 3rd. I think that should have been March 5th. It's minor technicality. Is that correct?
Yes, it would be
It
March
would be
5th, because that's
Right, that's today.
today.
Right?
Yes. 'Cause item 12 was the ordinance number 7 was the trash, and we're addressing it today, so you're correct.
And then on page 4, I don't even know that it matters now, but it says an ordinance assigning the liquor licensing authority pertaining to the special event permits the city clerk and prohibiting consumption of alcohol. That last part of that sentence, I don't think should have been in there.
It had to be in there until you amended it on second reading, so it had to be because it was still that way until you amended it on second reading. Sorry, Jim.
Okay.
Okay. Any other additions or corrections at this time?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a movement to approve the minutes of the 2/19/18 regular city council meeting and the 2/21/18 vision committee meeting.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Mr. Hamrick, second. Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Huckes?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay. Any announcements from the council this time? General government meeting Wednesday? Oh, go ahead.
Well, there is General Government Wednesday. We are talking a pretty in-depth conversation about stormwater. We invite all of you to attend that if you have an interest in it. Also, concerning stormwater, tomorrow at 1 o'clock, city staff is meeting with Dawson Ranch HOA to talk about stormwater issues. At 2 o'clock, we have a kickoff meeting for the hydraulic ditch Atkins study concerning stormwater as well.
That's here at the,
Both of those are here at City Hall.
okay. And you're all welcome to come.
And also, I'd like to point out, Police Chief Harvey, you're here tonight, and Wednesday, you are having a special meeting to honor a lot of your folks. Do you want to give a quick plug for that?
Sure, I'd love to. Mayor, members of council, I'm Derek Harvey, the city's police chief. And so Wednesday, actually in council chambers at 10 o'clock in the morning, we'll be honoring several of our folks who have done some pretty harrowing things over the past year. We'll be giving out some life-saving awards. I don't want to give out too much, but we're giving out some life-saving awards for some things that happened out on the bridge, as well as honoring some citizens who have actually stood up and helped us in our work to keep our community safe. So I would invite the community to come to that ceremony. It's going to be here this Wednesday at 10 a.m. We have several other functions going on this week as well, but that's definitely one where we want to honor those folks who have put themselves in harm's way.
Thank you, Chief Harvey, and thank
Thank
you
you.
to our folks at the police department. We're very proud of the work that you all do. And another celebration I would like to announce is this Saturday at 10 o'clock at the Centennial Park. The playground equipment will finally be open, and so all the kiddos can go out and play on that new equipment. we're very excited for that. So please join us, 10 o'clock on Saturday at Centennial Park as well.
Will the water be on like last time?
No. This
They-
is to
what?
recognize the playground, not the splash.
Yeah, we're
Well,
featuring
You have to wait a few more
playground
months
this
for
time.
that.
What they did to me the last time, it's payback time.
It'll be a little bit cold
Yeah,
tomorrow.
well, I got some names of those little guys. So, I also want to announce that the quarterly meeting for the officials, mayors of the area is going to be at the the federal penitentiary, and I will attend as a representative, as mayor of Canyon City. They usually have a long meeting telling us what's going on. They give us lunch, and it's a quarterly meeting, and be lots of questions on what's going on there. So, that is Thursday at 10 o'clock. Any other announcements? And then I go for the adoption of the agenda and the consent agenda. Could we have the administrator review the consent agenda, please?
If I may?
Yes, ma'am.
Just, we have a correction to the executive session. It should cover the Black Hills franchise and the acquisition of property from Black Hills.
Okay.
Regarding the consent agenda, Mayor and Council, 5A would authorize the city administrator to execute a agreement to purchase with Cartograph for $106,094.98 to convert the city's operations management system. The vendor's second and third year price commitments include a non-appropriation clause on the part of the city. We knew that was an issue last time. 5B authorizes the mayor to execute a development agreement with the Cornella Brothers for the donation to the city of 42 acres for stormwater facility purposes. This has a minimum value of $80,000. The city just recently had purchased similar acreage for stormwater purposes at High Street and 15th, and that was appraised at $2,800 per acre. So we really are very appreciative of the Cornellas for this donation. In consideration, they'll receive $44,807 worth of fire hydrant, sidewalk, curb and gutter, street light, and stormwater impact fee waivers. 5C would authorize the mayor to execute the municipal judge's contract for this year. 5D is a resolution 2-218 would authorize the mayor to execute a funding grant agreement with CDOT in the amount of $205,400 with a 25% match for the police department's mobile data terminals. We hope to have those operational clearly by the fall. But this will be a huge asset, not only for police, but more importantly for the public. Give us state-of-the-art technology to prevent crime and address issues in the field. 5E was bids. 28-18 was a bid to buy 26,250 pounds of anthracite water treatment plant filters for the water department, and it would be awarded to Anthracite Filter Media for the amount of $7,953.75. 31-18 is a bid to upgrade the city's virtual server host software. This would optimize the administration and backup of the city's computer servers to government connection in the amount of $16,896.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Yes, ma'am.
Harry, on that resolution, were you going to amend that resolution, or did you find out that it was okay, or do we need to amend that?
No, we need to amend that.
Okay, on that resolution number 2, if you look at the fourth whereas, that number should be 51,400. And in the second sentence from on the bottom, that 41,000 should be changed to 51,400, and the total of the grant, 256,800. So with that, I'd like to have those numbers amended.
Do I have a motion for that?
So I'd ask
Does
for a
everybody
motion-
understand?
Motion to amend the consent agenda with noting those resolution changes, and also the agenda for as the executive session language.
I got other changes.
On what? Go ahead.
The agenda.
Well, we need to do the consent agenda, and then we can move on to, for both of them.
Okay.
Okay?
You're right. He's right.
What? No, he wants to move items up. You want to do that then? Okay, do it.
Could you at least poll the audience in terms of how many people here are for the deer issue?
Just if you're here to talk about the deer issue.
Or listen.
Or listen.
Yeah, if you have interest. And how many people are here regarding the trash issue? So relative to that, Mayor, I would suggest that item number 9 be moved to 6A.
Okay.
And then item number 14 be moved to 6B, so that these people don't have to go through that whole agenda with us.
Okay.
I'm sure they'll enjoy it, but.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt the agenda and the consent agenda with the amended number 15 executive session to include the Black Hills property acquirement. Also, resolution number 2 amended it with the prices accordingly, as Kathy Raby stated, as well as moving 9 to 6A and number 14 to 6B.
Okay. Everybody understand it?
Second.
Second. Mr. Meisner, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, thank you. Then let's go to item number 9, which is amended to 6A. Item number 9 is ordinance number 7.
Miss 6.
What?
Administrator's report.
Oh.
Wouldn't want to lose
Be
that.
very brief, given your commitments tonight. I just want to, since the chief is here, announce that on March 22nd will be the kickoff for the second Citizens Police Academy opportunity, and that will start at 6 o'clock on March 6th at the Annex on 9th Street. If you're interested in the program, you can call the chief or the police department in the next couple of days, but very informative and educational opportunity for citizens. We had a full class last time, about 25 people, so hopefully we'll have just as many this time.
Any questions of the chief?
Chief, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
No, ma'am. I think Administrator O'Rourke did a pretty good job with it. The only thing I would say is that space does fill up quickly, so we actually had a waiting list last time, so if anybody in the public is interested, they should definitely get a hold of us soon.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief Harder.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes, Mayor?
Sir, while you're here, I would at least recommend, relative to item, the MTD authorization, that you work with Harry and try to establish some kind of fund so that those, we know that those are going to have to be replaced within a 4 to 5 year time frame, and we need to start building the funds for that now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We definitely need a plan for replacement, and we have 5 years to do that, other than having to try and find another grant in 5 years, and or do like Pueblo is doing, and Pueblo PD is having to raise taxes in order to pay that, and I think we
Right.
can be a little more, give more forethought to that.
We like the accumulation
Is that
of funds.
possible?
We've already
Yeah.
discussed it, yes,
Yeah.
we've already planned for it.
Create a kitty fund?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good
Trust
idea.
fund.
Police fund, sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Where are we at?
Item number 9.
Item number 9.
Number 9.
Number 9. It's ordinance number 7, series 2018. This is a first reading, an ordinance amending Title 8, Business Dumpsters in Residential Districts. I will need 3 to introduce this ordinance. Ms. Gonzalez, Mr. Jaquez, Ms. Smith. Thank you. Clerk, would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 7, series of 2018, an ordinance amending sections 8.16.040 and 8.16.060 of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning business dumpsters in residential zones.
Are there comments and questions from, okay, a report from the Community Development Coordinator, developer, Dina?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So ordinance 7 is basically an update to Ordinance 44, Series of 2017, that was passed on December 4th by council. And these updates basically cover 2 items. They allow business dumpsters up to 2 cubic yards in size in residentially zoned areas. And B, also allow residents to obtain an exemption to the location requirements that are in the ordinance upon execution of an affirmation form that can be submitted to the city. So this update was also sent to the 2 trash companies last Wednesday on February 28th, so they're aware of the updates.
Okay, any questions from council?
I'll start.
Go ahead.
There is another major change in the fact that the previous ordinance, it was my understanding that the intent of council at that point was to get the dumpsters and the trash containers off of the street, and that we would address the aesthetics of that later with another ordinance. But I see in the change of the verbiage of this ordinance, you've now addressed the aesthetics by adding that verbiage to this particular ordinance. On item C, page 2, where you're saying that it must not be visible from adjacent residential property. I would ask that that particular verbiage go back to the original verbiage that said, every effort shall be made. Why was that changed?
And I can answer that, because that language is unenforceable and vague. We can't
That was
enforce
the intent at the time.
I understand that, but it basically has no effect. The city cannot enforce that provision. It's
Then
fine if
we-
you want to put it back in, but you have to understand we can't enforce that.
That's the reason it was there, was my understanding, is that the intent of council was to get those dumpsters off of the street. The intent of council at that time was not to have that aesthetics issue.
My memory may be different than yours. This issue's been discussed since last April. One of the fundamental issues, besides not having obstructions in the city's public right-of-way, were aesthetics. And
I agree.
that's why this materialized. It's also reflected in the citizen survey where people would like an improved built environment, and we felt that this would be a step in the positive direction. But again, at the end of the day, it's the council's prerogative as to what you want to do. It doesn't really matter what the original intent was.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like
Go ahead.
to comment. Councilmember Meisner, I do recall that discussion. That was when Terry was in the position of city planner, and I think the intent as well was that it was every effort to conceal for aesthetic reasons, and that although unenforceable, it was a baby step towards encouraging businesses to take those things without having heavy hand in it. So I do recall that conversation intent of that.
I just suggest we go back to that baby step.
Any questions? Mr. Hamrick.
Yes, this is, I guess, for Dina. The staff report dated 27th of February is for this ordinance and also for this proposed ordinance and for the one that was already passed. Is that correct? An interpretation that residential trash containers are not visible from any public or private right-of-way. Is that?
Are you referring to Councilman Meisner's comment and that verbiage for commercial areas as it relates to residential areas?
No. Well, what this says, okay, we have your staff report. It says it's from yourself. It says that it has 2 points in it, A and B. It's dated 27th of February. The second one says, allow residents to obtain an exemption to the location requirements, and then in parentheses, it says not visible from any public or private right-of-way, excepting alleys, and not located in a manner to extend beyond the front facade of the principal structure. And so my question is, that is correct. That's a correct statement based on the ordinance, both proposed and as it stands now. Is that correct?
Correct. So the part in the staff report under item B in parentheses is the specific language that was it was added in clarifying a potential exemption from the location requirement in residentially zoned areas.
Where is the requirement for being not visible in residential areas, for residential trash containers?
I can find it, but it's confusing.
It's in, so section 8.16060.
That
B,
covers business
B,
dumpsters.
right, B, number 3.
Wait, excuse me, that's business dumpsters? My question is for residential
Right.
containers, not
So-
business dumpsters.
Right, but part of this change, as requested, is to now permit again or allow business dumpsters in residentially zoned areas. So this
Well, but-
ordinance would permit business dumpsters up to 2 cubic yards again in residentially zoned areas. And so then the location on the, or the clarification on the location requirements is under number 3. So again, that B, business dumpsters, number 3, C.
So, but my question is still not answered, because we have business dumpsters, we have construction containers or commercial containers. Commercial means exceeding 96 gallons. So our residential containers are 96, exactly 96, they're not greater than 96?
So this change, so this ordinance is basically permitting how we are defining a business dumpster in the definition section. We are now permitting, again, a business dumpster up to 2 cubic yards in residentially zoned areas. That's what this is proposing.
Okay, I understand that part. But
In-
there's still a different class of trash receptacles, approved trash receptacles, that is not either a business dumpster or a commercial dumpster, correct? There's a third category.
So
It's
s-
not
if-
defined, but it's because it's not because it's not a business dumpster and it's not a construction. The dumpster that the trash company provides me at my house, I believe, is 96 gallons or less.
The tote.
Can I
So
help?
the tote with the.
Yes.
So
So-
those would still be allowed to be used in residential areas. And the ordinance number 44, as it currently sits, restricts residentially zoned areas to those 96-gallon containers. The ordinance before you tonight would loosen that restriction and permit a 2 cubic yard dumpster to be used in a residentially zoned area.
I do understand that. I do understand that. But my question is about residential, non-business, non-construction, non-commercial trash receptacles.
Okay?
And my question goes back to the memo, which says residents can obtain an exemption from location requirements. That is, but you're talking about residents who have business dumpsters, is that correct?
Any sort of residential receptacle.
All right, where in the code does it say that a residential, non-commercial, non-construction,
Is it-
non-business dumpster has to be hidden? That's my question.
Got it.
I don't think it does.
It does not. In fact, it does not. And so I sent an email to the city administrator that you so kindly answered for me, Dina, that said that that the city enforcement department was going to be enforcing the visibility requirements on non-commercial, non-construction, non-business dumpsters to be hidden. And there is no such requirement in the code. And I do not believe it is appropriate for our code enforcement department to be enforcing something that's not in the code.
That was the baby step. I'm not being funny. I'm just telling you, the reason it was not included is because we essentially reached a compromise with the aesthetics issue and the trash issue. And to move the trash issue forward, the aesthetics was removed. And that we wanted the dumpster off of the street, but we were not going to address the aesthetics at that time. And that was with 96 and with the 2 cubic yard dumpsters. And now we've decided that aesthetics is an issue, and I don't agree with that.
So two follow-ups. One, from my understanding of the intent of the business dumpster locations in commercially zoned areas, commercially and industrial zoned areas, that we did have the baby step language in, and based on the attorney's review, feels that that's unenforceable. So that's why that modification was made in this round. Councilman Hamrick, back to your question, in terms of location requirements, I mean, from my understanding and history of this, and again, it was started with our previous city planner, that there always was intent to restrict locations in residentially zoned areas. And actually, in the current 8.16040E speaks to not having basically the tote or whatever mechanism in the front yard of the area for longer than 24 hours prior to collection.
At the place of collection, that's a defined term. It's not a general front yard prohibition. It's a place of collection prohibition for longer than 24 hours.
All right, so let's go to I believe it's also covered under C, in that same subsection 040C.
Under which item?
So
C.
8.16.040, use of trash receptacle.
Yes.
C
And-
also states in that first sentence, no trash receptacle shall be located at a place of collection in the front yard area of any property within a residential zone district for any period longer than 24 hours before or after collection.
Yes, and place of collection is a defined term. It does not include the entire front yard. It's an area located adjacent to the street or adjacent to the curb where the trash is, a receptacle is placed for collection purposes. And this prohibits that trash receptacle for being at that place of place of collection for longer than 24 hours. But it is not a general prohibition on trash receptacles in yards.
The place of collection is actually defined in the definitions.
So again, I think the intent was to restrict the location, because that's why we modified it to have the exemption opportunity, to restrict it to not be located basically in the front yard.
There's two locations that are relative to the ordinance. One of those is where am I going to keep my trash container? And then the second location issue is where am I going to put my trash container when somebody picks it up or dumps it? And that second definition is the place of collection. And the place of collection is the one where it says you cannot have that dumpster there for more than, or not dumpster, but container for more than 24 hours before or after the collection time or the day of collection. There's no reference in the ordinance to storing it when it's not in its place of collection. And I'm telling you, that was a compromise that we reached to get this thing passed the first time. Is that once it's picked up, I need to get it away from the street, and ideally we want people to start thinking about concealing those. But the issue originally was to get it off of the street. And the language was put in there very vaguely to try to get people to start thinking that we need to start concealing these trash containers, but it's not mandated. We have now put in mandating language that at least a dumpster must be concealed.
For commercial and industrial uses.
And in residential areas.
So, Mr. Mayor, I do not have any particular motion or issue with the language as written. I just am pointing out that there is no basis for enforcement actions for residential dumpsters not at a place of location during non-collection periods.
Okay?
Only for 96 gallon.
Yes, correct, that is
Okay.
correct.
Now,
That's incorrect.
let's try and make this simple. Well, how on earth, we're sitting here as a council talking about it, it's not clear to us, how's it clear to them? I just wonder, I mean, let's not do that. No, we're not ready.
I realize-
We're not ready yet.
I
So,
re- I
why don't we, did you need to say something?
No.
Okay. Why don't we back up? I understand we talked about, we were trying to make it simple so that by their own volunteer effort would try to make our town look nicer and conceal it. But the main effort was to keep it out of the public right away and off the sidewalks. I get calls complaining because the totes are sitting on a sidewalk and sit there for days. That's not right. So what we're trying to do is keep it off the sidewalks and off the street. Why don't we start there, make it very clear if we can, and then kind of go from there. Is that what we're talking about, a baby step?
We would accomplish that if we were to strike item C under B2 on page 2. And then there's some other minor things that,
Restate that, Jim.
page 2 of the ordinance, B as in boy, item number 2, item C.
Well, I think instead of striking it, just reinsert the original language that said every effort shall be made to
You
locate.
could, I would go with that.
dumpsters.
Which basically would say something like, every effort shall be made that the container's not visible, something like that. That's, verbiage is on page,
It's on page 6 of the,
of the 6B, I think. 6,
it's B2C.
it's on page 6, like the third paragraph down. It says, every effort shall be made to locate all business dumpsters so that they are not, and then they've added visible from adjacent property, not added, but. So if you just took that sentence that's in page 6 and put it in C, I would be satisfied with that.
Councilman Meismer, what about on that same page under 3B? About that verbiage?
Is that page 6?
Yeah, same page that we were just on.
3C. Did you say?
Well,
it's
that
3B.
whole thing got kind of eliminated because we combined the, when we said we could do business dumpsters in commercial or residential, it combined a bunch of paragraphs. And I think, maybe
Actually,
correct
we
me.
s- we
Actually, it's split it out.
We actually split it out.
Yeah.
We had to have commercial and residential, so we had to split it out.
Right.
So can I make a suggestion? And I may
Absolutely.
be misinterpreting what you want. So the every effort, I'm just going to call it the every effort language for short. Do you want that to apply in all zones?
I understood that that was our intent at that time with the original ordinance.
So you see under B1 there? Of the on the scheduled trash days? The one that starts with that?
Of the actual ordinance?
Yeah, the actual, I'm sorry, on page 2 of the
Okay.
actual ordinance.
B1?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a provision of applicability in every zone. So we can, if you want the best efforts language to apply to every zone, we can put it in that section along with that language that's in there right now, which I think you have a change about too, but we'll get to
I
that.
think B, right, but it's there now. If you just change C, I don't care where you put it, just as long as it applies. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, but C's regarding something else, so I,
C's related to number 2.
I mean, I see B1 as relative to the location. And the place of collection, isn't that referencing, item B1 is place of collection?
right, but we can split that out into 2 subparts because that's a provision of general applicability for every zone. So if you would like it to be in every zone, that's the proper, probably the proper place for it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Kind of, okay.
And I was going to point out too, as far as where it's located in its storage area, doesn't it have language in there that when it's stored, it has to be behind the front facade of the house?
Well, that's another issue that we can chat.
Yeah, we thought that was in and clear in ordinance 44, because that's why we added the language to make the exception, but clearly somehow that was missed. Because from my recollection, the more loose language was for commercially zoned areas, and we were still going to be more restrictive with residentially zoned areas. But now I'm hearing this evening that you want to even loosen that front yard setback and restrictions for residentially zoned areas.
I thought the loosening was just in allowing there to be dumpsters in alleyways, in residential alleyways, and also suggesting the concealment of the view for commercial.
Yeah,
Commercial and
and maybe I'm not
business.
using the right term. Catherine, what was the term you used, the short?
Every effort.
Every effort language.
So that every effort language, from my recollection of this effort, was to be focused on commercially and industrial zone properties. And that's where we were permitting more flexibility at this time. But the original intent, from my recollection, was to be a little bit more restrictive in the residentially zoned areas in terms of not permitting them in the front yard area.
If that were the case, then I would think that our staff would have put the verbiage in the ordinance that specifically said, if it's not being picked up and collected, it needs to be concealed. And we didn't do that, did we not?
Well, concealed is different than simply not being in the front yard
I
setback.
agree. Right.
Okay. Okay, you're timing me out here.
Well, me too.
Well,
But, I
why
mean,
don't we
if-
go ahead and put this aside, you get it the way we're comfortable with it, and let's look at it again. The step was to start doing what the people in our survey said. They don't like seeing dumpsters and stuff sitting all over town. That was the intent that
I don't
we started
disagree.
out. And so the first step was to at least get them off the sidewalks and back onto your own property.
I
Maybe
agree.
you want to paint them a different color, I don't know. But if you want them in your front yard right now, I guess that's okay. I don't agree with it, but go ahead. So all we were trying to do is get them off the right-of-way, off the street, and back onto their property. I'd like to see them concealed too, but
So I need clarification on council's preferred direction for residentially zoned properties. Do you want to permit openly residential storage containers? So right now, we're saying that those can be 96-gallon containers or up to a 2 cubic yard dumpster to be permitted in the front yard area of a residentially zoned property. We need clarification on that.
No, not for permanent storage.
No. So I need a straw poll.
I agree with Dina. I mean, we need to give her some direction in terms of exactly what she's saying, that if we're going to change this, and it's council's desire to make dumpsters and of whatever it is, dumpsters or trash containers, concealed in the front yard, if that's council's desire, I'm a team player, I won't support that, but I'll go along with it.
okay.
But there's other changes in here that got to be made. So slow down.
Well, that's why we're not gonna, I don't think we should vote on it then. We'll change it, and then let's take a look at it. But let's have public comment. Okay?
Well, let's, Frank has some.
Frank, go ahead.
This is just my suggestion. We've been asking these folks over and over and over to do things that we want. My suggestion is, when they come up with what they think we want, that we just have a separate meeting with them so that we don't keep going through the same thing at the next meeting, so that we know when it comes up, it's going to be something that we feel covers what we want it to cover. Because we're going to keep pounding this back and forth.
Okay?
I concur with Frank in that we've tried to give direction to staff, and they keep coming back with added verbiage. That's the problem.
Well, I don't know about that, but,
I do. I mean, I got, it's right here.
all right. Well. So, why don't we let some people from the public, and this is the public out here, I hope, right? Yes, yes. Yes, ma'am, you had a special chair and everything. Name and address, please.
Judy Skinner, 409 Washington Street. I'm listening to what you are saying about the trash containers out in the street, but you're not taking people with health problems into consideration. That it's there for their convenience to get the trash out of their homes. And it's a very important issue because we're all getting older. I'm getting older. I'm having a problem with my eye vision. And for me to be told I have to try and get it to the curb, no, that's not working for me. That's not working for a person in a wheelchair.
Where is it, where's your, can we have your last name again? I'm sorry.
Skinner.
Skinner, S-K-I-N-N, okay. Where's your trash container? Do you have one of those blue ones or green ones or?
My husband takes the trash out.
Well, that's-
Sorry. I don't know what color it is.
Ours is pink, and I know that because I take it out, all right? But so you say you don't have a sidewalk?
Yes, we do.
Could you take it and keep it just off the sidewalk and not on the curb? Would that be a problem?
That would not be a problem.
Okay,
That
well-
would be very acceptable.
Okay,
Even
that-
for a person in a wheelchair.
Okay, what we're talking about, and you could have an exemption on that too, but we're talking about getting it off the curb and off the sidewalk because we get complaints, people trying to ride their walk, whatever they do on the sidewalk, which is walk. And if it's off the sidewalk and on your property, that would work, wouldn't it? Just agree with me.
On
okay?
trash
yeah,
day, would I have
I
to
was gonna
take the
point out-
container and put it in the street?
So, Ms. Skinner, there is, under this ordinance that we're considering tonight, under 81604, Part C, it says persons may obtain an exemption to this requirement upon the execution of an affirmation on forms provided by the city that the person is not physically able to move the trash receptacle to and from place of collection. Persons with this exemption must comply with all other provisions of this chapter. So that we are taking into consideration the elderly or those who are in wheelchairs that may not be able to move their trash back and forth on trash day. And so we are considering those needs in this
If
ordinance.
Mr. Trump gets his way, we're going to have a lot of veterans coming back unable to get their trash out.
Well, but where do you keep it now? Would that work for you? Do you leave it on the sidewalk or on the curb all the time?
No,
So you just kind of drag it back off the sidewalk, it's on your lawn, you're done.
no. My husband does that, and he does not have my problems.
You know, he's a good guy. So, well,
But
that,
if he should die before me, you're putting a pressure on me that's going to cause me
well,
a
but,
heart condition.
but you're okay the way you're doing it now.
Right now, yes.
Yeah, but
Well,
you
then it
would
would
be
stay
able
the
to
same.
get an exemption.
You would have an exemption to stay the same.
So that exemption is not going to be taken out?
No.
Is it going to be bold enough that people can read it?
Never was in there, but part of this change, per the request of one of the trash companies, because of some concerns that their customers had, we added some verbiage to allow an exemption, or that's what we're trying to do, is add that exemption.
Well, I think that's going to be very important, especially once our veterans start coming home.
Yep.
So I
Okay.
appreciate your listening to me.
All right.
It's
Thank
an
you.
important issue.
It is. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And you can have your chair back. Anyone else like to? No, not Mr. Weed. You talked too much last time, Dennis. You wore out your time.
I'll be actually quite brief, but I.
That's not possible
I
usually, is
agree.
it?
I did use up more than my share
Okay,
of
well,
time
go
last
ahead.
time. So Dennis Weed, 1375 Rudd. I haven't heard a clarification on this, and it's probably, since you're going to be taking another look at this anyhow, you might as well consider it. This 2 cubic yard commercial dumpster in residential areas. My question is, What does that mean when you're in a TMU area, transitional mixed use? And I have a piece of property that qualifies. It's on East Main Street. The underlying zoning is residential. I do have a TMU for that piece of property, and it's commercial. And so does this restriction apply to the underlying zoning or the overlaying zoning? And I currently have a 2-yard dumpster there that is marginally acceptable. And I could easily see needing a 3-yard dumpster there at some point, and in the commercial overlay zone. So,
I don't know, Dina.
so I mean, that's just something you might want to consider.
Okay, we'll have to clarify that with Dina in terms
So-
of, you got that, Dina?
Well, I have a
Because I-
50/50 chance. I would say it's commercial, what you're actually using it for right now, because somewhere agreed that you can do that. So that's the one that I would go with, not the residential. Someone agreed, some council, some group of people agreed that you could do the commercial thing. So that's what you should be allowed to do there, and all the benefits that go with commercial.
I would think.
I agree. I think it would be nice if it said that.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address and phone number and credit card? No. No credit cards. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name's Doug Pittman. I live up at 1115 Rudd. Been a resident of this town for nearly all my life. The few years I was gone to the military, I was gone. But I own properties around town, rental properties. And in my case, I have 2 of these dumpsters that meet the 2-yard criteria that you're talking about. Those 2 dumpsters serve 7 addresses. And I came because I was concerned about how it was going to affect my rental properties. Some of my properties are adjacent properties where I have multiple houses on one piece of property and a house right next door. Some of them are, well, all of them are that way. And so I was really concerned about the 4-unit requirement and some of the requirements on the dumpsters. This is obviously a complex problem, and you guys and ladies have got a lot of work to do it. And I'm just asking that you consider us small business people that are trying to keep our alleyways and our streets cleaned up. You know, I'd rather look at a dumpster than a bunch of trash blowing down the alleys. And where I live, one of my neighbors doesn't have enough trash service to haul off his trash, and so we deal with his trash and their trash blowing down the alley all of the time. Also in my case, both of my dumpsters set in alleyways, but they're on my property. They're clear completely out of the alleyways. And I don't know about concealing them. Maybe partial concealment would be an answer over full concealment, because I'm concerned about the trash company employees having to try to grab on these dumpsters and drag them out of an enclosure. And when I'm paying for a service, I don't particularly want to be the one that has to go drag that thing out of the enclosure after it's full of stuff also. So I'm just asking that you, in your deliberations, that you consider some of those things and give us a little bit of clarity on what we're doing and how we're moving forward. So,
Doug, I believe that's what we're doing today. The intent is for those of you folks who do have residential alleyways, that you can have those dumpsters in an alleyway. And I don't believe they
Right.
need to be concealed if they're in the alley.
right, none of mine are actually in the alleyways. They're actually on my private property, but they are at the back of the properties in the alley. You know, they're only visible from the alleys.
Yeah.
But
So-
I do thank you for a chance to speak.
I
and
believe that
I
is
thank you for
fine.
your work that you do for our city. You know, Canyon City's a beautiful little town. My family's been here for many, many years, and I most appreciate your efforts to keep our city clean and nice. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight.
Thank you, Doug. Anyone else? Next.
Hi, I'm Patricia Rothenbucker, and I live currently at 521 Greenwood. But I own rental properties over in the S.E. Prescott Street area. And we have 2-yard dumpsters over there. We have bears quite often that come through the property. And the smaller dumpsters are a problem. They tip them over, and then the plastic bags get down into the ditch that runs through there and plugs up the,
Irrigation.
yeah, the culverts
Oh.
that carry the water to the stormwater drains. So it's a problem for us in that particular area. We don't have sidewalks in the area. We have an abundance of trees, and that's typically what we use the 2-yard dumpsters for, is just cleaning up the limbs that fall from the trees. We don't have them there year-round, but like last year, we were gone on vacation and came home, and there had been a windstorm, which had damaged a lot of the trees. And so we got busy on the weekend as soon as we got back and cut the limbs that were hanging and had them piled up on a daily basis, going in to cut more of them up to get them in the dumpsters. And we were given a notice by the city that we had 10 days to get the cleanup done. And I just didn't think it was fair when the neighbors across the street still have a pile sitting there that they didn't have to clean up. And we're getting older, and once you put the limbs in those 2-yard dumpsters and you jump up and down on it to get them packed in there, there's no way I could physically move those. We try and keep them around the corner so they aren't right on the street, and there's a kind of a parking lot space there so the company can get in there to get them. But I just ask that you would take into consideration that not all residential areas within the city have sidewalks and have front yards, and that some of us are trying to do our best to keep our neighborhoods clean, and would appreciate your cooperation as well.
How do you think this would change what you do?
I believe we would have to ask for an exemption from what I'm hearing.
Or do you use both the tote and the dumpster?
We don't have totes, we have the 2-yard dumpsters,
And
and they're full.
you're not, there's no sidewalk, you're on the side of your house, on your property.
Not on the side of the house, they're in a parking area. And I also would ask that the city, if they could, would grade the road and put some gravel down there. I know there's been some problems in the area with homeless people camping on one of the properties at the end, and there was an incident with the police department last week. And I just think that because that area is being neglected, that it's inviting more problems to that area.
Okay. What?
There's trees actually growing in the roadway that need to be cut
Okay.
down.
What streets is it? It's Chestnut and?
It's 10th Street. Beyond 10th Street, it's Prescott and Ussie.
Oh, okay. And 11. Do I hear 12? Oh, okay. We got notes. Thanks.
I appreciate it very much. Thanks
Okay.
for hearing me out.
Sure.
And Patricia, as far as your 10-day notice, I do want to make it, let you know that if you're making progress, and you talk to the code enforcement, that they are more than willing to work with you on timeframes, as
We
long
don't-
as they see progress is being made.
Sorry, we don't live there, so we didn't have any communications. We just got the notice in the mail to
I'm saying
get
if
it
you get a
done.
notice and you feel like you need more than 10 days and you're making progress towards remediating, then the city's very happy to work with you with
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Turn quiet. Oh.
Hi, my name is Theory Mills. I live at 160 South Reynolds.
Could you slow down just a little?
Theory Mills. Theory. T as in Tom.
Terry.
H-I-R-Y.
Terry Mills.
Theory. Mhm.
Oh, okay. All right, Terry?
What's your address?
And we're a family of
What was
seven.
your address?
Oh, 160 South Reynolds. We're a family of seven, and so as far as like using the totes, it's not feasible to keep trash out of our yard if we were to use the totes. We have a dumpster, but you said the ordinance says that you can have a dumpster as long as it's in an alleyway. And if you have gone anywhere in Canyon and looked around in the residences, not all residence areas have alleyways. We don't. There's probably, well, all the streets off South Reynolds, none of them really have alleyways to put a dumpster in. We also live near the river, and so bears are also a problem for us. As it is, sometimes they do dump over our dumpsters. If we had totes, it would be a huge mess. Sometimes they get the neighbor's tote, and trash does blow over to our yard. Our dumpster is not in our front yard, but it's where the trash company put it and where they can easily access it.
Well, it wouldn't make any difference to you then. If you don't have, the only comment we had about,
Because in your ordinance, you say that as long as it's in an alleyway, you
well,
can have a
but if you
dumpster.
have an alleyway,
Well, then maybe that needs to be, because
No.
from what we're hearing in your, it
No.
says that it's okay
Go
to be in an alleyway, am I correct? And not in the front yard?
An alley is the only public right-of-way it can be in, but it's not the only place it can be located. Does that make sense?
Yeah, standing back there, though, it doesn't, from what you guys are saying.
it's your driveway. Most, no?
Well, it has to be out of view, public view, in residential.
Well, I think that's what we need direction on, so.
Yeah.
Because in our driveway, it
took that out,
is
huh?
visible from the road and from the neighbors across the street. So, and we can't put it behind the house. That's our backyard and where we park our vehicles, so.
Well, I would just like to say congratulate you on a large family. You have a family of 7, I have a family of 8. And so
it's-
I know what
yeah.
it is to have a family of 8, but I actually do totes, and I will say that if you get a recycling tote in conjunction with your service, which isn't very expensive at all, that you'll be more than adequately taken care of.
Well, that's a
Okay.
matter of opinion,
Right.
but I would like clarification on.
Okay. Yeah, that's what we're gonna work on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? What's the pleasure of council?
Can I make a comment?
You may make it, sure.
Oh, there's,
Oh. Green shirt.
I want to be seen.
Well, good.
My name's John King. I live at 1515 North 6th. And right now I have a 2-yard dumpster sitting in the street in front of my house. And to put it in the alley to where there's a space right now, there's a gas meter in the way. So the only way I can do it is put it in part of my driveway that is connected to the alley. But there's no fence.
Is it
So
on
what
the-
do you do there?
Is it on a sidewalk or in the street?
It's in the street.
In the street itself?
It's in the street itself, right beside my driveway. But to put it in the alley, I've got to cut the chain link fence that's there to put it to where it's alley accessible, because where I could put it now, my gas meter's there. So I can't put it in the alley behind anything.
I'm sorry, I've got a really bad cold. I spoke with your wife briefly on the phone.
Okay.
She said that you use it to pick up debris and stuff all over the neighborhood.
Yeah. I live in a Woodlawn and 6th of the wind tunnel.
Mhm. I drove by and I saw where it was.
Yeah. And the house across the street from us, there's an elderly lady there. She just lost her husband last year. And we take her trash when she has problems because she can't get her tote out to the alley. So I go, if you got a bag, bring it over, throw it in there. I've got a single mother that lives across the alley from us. Bring it over, not a big deal. Plus, I do all the tree limbs that are in the neighborhood.
So they have a unique situation where they don't have anywhere to put that dumpster.
well, that
Well, like I
was-
said, I can cut, there's a chain link fence along the alley. So I can cut one section out, but I'll have to get it graded out so it'll be easier for the trash company to pull it into the alley to dump it. But right now, it's sitting next to the driveway, but it's in the street.
It is in the street.
Yeah. So that's, that's my problem.
Right.
You guys are
Meisner.
doing a great job.
Oh,
Yes, sir?
Oh, no.
Oh.
Did you?
oh, okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
You bet. John?
I think there's a couple of sections in here where we talk about collection and the times of collection. In the new verbiage, we talk about 24 hours after. And in the previous verbiage, it was 24 before and 24 after. So I would like to see that consistency there. And then we've had a couple of people mention this placement that can't be beyond the front facade. And I think there are some situations, I don't know how we deal with this, that you physically can't do that. There is no place to put a dumpster behind your front facade. Make sense? I mean, I don't know how we deal with those, on an exemption basis or something that,
Well, what we're talking about right now, we're talking about off the curb, off the sidewalk, out of the public right of way as best we can. And so it doesn't say anything about facade or anything else.
it does too. It
Well,
says,
it does now, but we're going to take a look at it.
Let's take that, Reeves.
okay.
Let's take a step back. We're awful long on this. Can we kind of wrap this up?
Sure. So just want to follow up with the gentleman that just spoke. He, the ordinance, the way it reads, he could place that 2 cubic yard dumpster in the alley, right of way, as long as it doesn't interfere with the flow of traffic. That's how the language currently reads, so that would be permitted.
But what about the concealment?
It does not have to be concealed in the alley.
Well, see, the thing about it is the alley, I live on the corner. The alley,
So it-
my fence is on the street. Got the sidewalk in the street. So it would still be visible from the street.
Right, we understand that. We understand those unique conditions, so that's why we're trying to at least make it flexible and say they can be located in the alley right of way. We're trying to minimize the exposure and visibility from a street, but we understand that those situations will exist. Yep. So, and then in terms of the, some of the comments or concerns about being located in the front yard, again, that's why the language was added in the ordinance before you this evening to allow somebody to come in and basically get an exemption from a location.
Okay. So, Dean, are you going to try and write something and bring it back so we can take another look at it?
I'm still not hearing clear direction. I'm hearing
Can
Jim's
I-
opinion very clearly, but I'm not hearing anything from the rest. And so we need to break this down to say, in residential zones with business dumpsters, do you want them to be allowed in the front yard?
Yes, as long as it's not in the right of way.
And I would say I don't want to see a business dumpster in the front yard, but alleys are great, or behind the front facade.
Okay, let's hold on.
That's why I suggested that she's listened to everything we've had to say. She's listened to everything the audience has had to say, okay? Let's get her to do what she thinks we're looking for, but then let's just have a meeting with the people there before we bring the ordinance back up and beat it to death again.
Okay.
Well, she needs to know, between
We need-
all of us, how many of us want to have 2 cubic foot dumpsters in residential neighborhoods.
Well, in the way we're going right now, what I'm looking at, it's going to almost be to the point where we're going to say, I don't care where you put your dumpster, we don't want to see it in the street, from the street, and anywhere. That's almost what's coming out of this conversation.
So Councilman Jaquez, would you prefer to allow a 2 cubic yard dumpster or other trash receptacle to be located in the front yard of a residentially zoned area on a regular basis?
I've got a long driveway. I can put my dumpster all the way in the left-hand corner, but if you're driving down the street, you're going to see it.
Sure.
I don't want to have to put it over a fence. And some of the stuff we're talking about is almost getting to that point.
So you're saying no? Is that? Okay, Dolly?
Yes for, it's been twisted.
Do we want to,
No.
would you want to allow a dumpster or a tote, basically a residential
Got it.
trash container to be located in the front yard area of a residentially zoned area.
I'm okay with it as long as it's neat and clean, closed and trash not on the outside of it as well.
Okay, Councilman Hamrick?
So number one, let me say, I think it would be really helpful. Right now, what is before us is ordinance number 7, as I understand it, which amends 8.16. We also have the ordinance number 44 in our packet, is that correct? Which is a marked up version of the current ordinance, is that correct also, or is this?
Correct.
Yes, that's correct. That's as
Okay.
requested by council.
And so we actually have 2 issues we're dealing with here, the proposed ordinance number 7 and revisions to number 44?
No,
No, it's
they're the same.
It's the same.
They're the same, it's just so we can see what the
Changes.
revisions were made, what changes are.
We could make progress if you could tell Dina whether you want a dumpster in the front yard or not.
Okay. I do not believe at this time we should restrict residential trash containers, which are 96 gallons or less, from view. There should be language about right-of-way. There should be language about the time it can be in the right-of-way or at the place of collection. I'm great with that, okay? As far as the 2-yard business dumpsters, I think we need to work towards, as we've said here, work towards, take our baby step first, best efforts kind of type situation to conceal those, but not make it something that's enforceable at this time.
Okay.
So is that a yes?
I don't see.
He's a split decision, I think.
We understand
We
where you're
got it,
coming
I
from.
think.
Okay.
Why don't we give it a run? And
Actually,
we-
hold on, I'm not quite done. So in commercially zoned properties, can they be allowed in the front, business dumpsters? Do they have to be, are they visible from the right-of-way? Do you want any restrictions on location besides place of location, or place of collection?
The current ordinance doesn't restrict, is that correct, Dina?
It doesn't,
Commercial.
Well, it's been updated with the language that was trying to be more specific or clear from an enforcement standpoint. So, but I'm hearing that we want to add back in the best effort language as well for the commercial areas.
business dumpsters were just allowed in commercial zones in the original ordinance.
Right.
Right, so that was the best efforts language. So is that the language you would like to see in there for the commercially zoned properties for business dumpsters?
That's my opinion.
Okay?
John?
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'm good with that.
Best efforts.
I already stated my opinion.
Oh.
Mayor?
She's talking commercial.
Oh, commercial.
Commercial, best efforts. Let's try it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
What we would suggest doing is revising this, but we agree with Frank, bringing it back to a general government meeting so you can have a robust discussion before we bring this back for council action.
Well, if they don't add any verbiage, that can be a simple discussion.
Okay.
That would be tabling it to the April 4th, I believe, general government.
And also, I'd like to suggest that when you do bring it back, that you bring back just a plain copy, and I don't know that we need a red line copy.
We've been asked by council to put the red line in the
We
packet.
do, because we want to see the differentiation of the original.
It's confusing, but
Versus
Okay.
the revision.
But
Okay,
beneficial.
let's,
Rip it out.
All right.
one more time, then we got to move on. Come on. Name and address.
My name is Judy Davidson, and I live in Penrose, but I do work for Howard Disposal, and I'm asking this in behalf of our customers and behalf of our drivers. So one thing that seems to be missing is us to put the trash dumpsters is the access to service them. If you have, the dumpsters, that's one of the reasons some of the dumpsters are in the front yards, so that our drivers are able to access them. If they're concealed, that's another thing to consider. And then I've also gotten some calls, I got some calls today that a trash dumpster was full. They happened to be an on-call, and the code officer told the customer they were going to be fined if it wasn't dumped within 24 hours. Our schedule don't allow that. We, as a company, we go and we service these areas when our drivers is there, you know, this certain day of the week. So that's something to please consider that. 24 hours just isn't really very fair to the customers or the businesses. And then I wanted to know, we heard that if a person needs a roll-off container, they would have to get a permit. Is that still something that they have to do?
That's a separate issue. If you're
Okay.
putting the roll-off container in the right-of-way, then that becomes a permit issue.
Okay, and then also if someone needs like a larger dumpster than like a 3-yard or 6-yard, and they need it in their front yard, they're doing work, or we do have a lot of people that use 3 yards, and you guys have made it to just the 2-yard. Can you guys please consider that also?
There's a provision
There's
for
a
construction
provision
dumpsters
for a construction dumpster.
permitted.
Has to be removed 15 days after the construction is completed.
And then, okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, let's move on. So we decided we're going to move 14, which is establishment of a deer harvesting committee.
Hold it, we need
What?
a motion, to
got
go
that.
ahead and table this to the April 4th, if that's.
Could I hear a
council's-
motion from council to table?
I'll do it.
Mr. Meisner?
Mayor and council, I move that we table ordinance, I lost my paperwork, 7, to have some rewriting done, and then it would be brought back to a general government meeting and then to council.
Second.
Do we need a date?
April 4th.
April 4th.
No, we said April 6th, I thought.
No, it's, no.
Oh, yeah, April 4th.
It's 4th.
Would be brought back to the April 4th general government meeting for council review.
Okay, general
I
government meeting.
second that.
Second. Call the roll.
Councilmember Meisner,
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez,
Yes.
Councilmember Hamrick,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez. By unanimous vote.
Okay, we agreed to take number 14 and bring it up to the next item, which is establish of a deer harvesting committee. Could I have a report from the city administrator, please?
Yes, Mayor and Council, working with Councilmember Meisner and the Division of Wildlife, and having the discussion a week ago regarding the prospects of deer harvest. You have articulated about 9 objectives and proposed regulations. What we're suggesting is that you form a committee of the council and citizens, the staff, and the Division of Wildlife to fine-tune that proposed strategy and then eventually bring it back to the council for action. There's no immediate rush because this proposed policy wouldn't take effect until 2019, but we think it'd be prudent to have more input from the community and then bring back the product of that to this council.
Comments, question from council? Mr. Meisner?
I'll start. I just want to begin the conversation with the fact that I can currently sit on my front porch with my bow and arrow, and I can shoot a deer in my front yard, and anything anybody can do about it, so long as I have an archery license and I'm within season. That process is currently allowed within the city limits. Most people do not understand that. My recommendation, I've collected 17 emails with people that are opposed to this process, and 15 emails with people that support the process. So we're back to a 50-50 process. Personally, I'm not sure it's worth council's effort, time and emotion to try to, the only thing that we would do, we would increase the number of licenses that the Department of Wildlife would issue. As anybody that hunts knows now, you may draw a license once every 2 or 3 years. Under this program, we would potentially have, I'm just going to throw a number, 50 licenses within the city limits. What's disappointing to people is those would probably be all doe licenses. We are not interested in removing the bucks from Canyon City. We're removing the does that are reproducing. So keep in mind, if a program were to move forward, the Division of Wildlife would only do does. It's a very emotional issue. I realize there's some financial burden for some of the people with the deer population. The Department of Wildlife currently has provisions that allow those people to have extra licenses to deal with that. I would just recommend we table it.
Anybody else?
So you're saying those who have large acreage with deer problems, they can currently get more?
If they can justify to the
Tags.
Division of Wildlife that the animals, whether it's deer, bear, or whatever, are having a financial impact on their lives, there are provisions. There are some people that I've talked to, which some of the people at the last meeting mentioned, where Division of Wildlife gives them extra licenses. I mean, I'll continue
Okay.
to head things out, but at this point, at a 50-50 balance, and all we're going to do is increase the numbers, we're not changing the law. You can still hunt within the city, and I can still be sitting there having a cup of coffee and see a deer run across my yard with an arrow stuck in it. We're not going to drop an animal immediately. Anybody that hunts knows that archery is death by bleeding. It's not a sudden impact. It is cruel and gruesome if you're not a hunter. And that's just the way it is. And if you shoot a deer, in all probability, it is not going to be dead on the spot where you killed it. And we're going to have to deal with that. And a lot of people don't want to deal with that.
Okay. Any comments?
I agree, table it.
Put it on the survey.
So, does somebody want to
I
make
mean,
a
when it
motion?
becomes an issue with the residents, I mean, we had 59% that said yes, but those 59% at this point aren't coming forward. I got other things to deal with.
Yeah, they're already
Like
harvested.
trash.
Large tracts. They're already being harvested in town. So it's, and also, it was only going to be allowed on an acre above with the permission of the owner. And if your owners out there don't want deer hunting, you don't have to have it.
I mean, there's all kinds of
Right.
limitations, and I
There's,
would have
yeah.
recommended that go to maybe a 5-acre plot, just to
Could
take
be.
care of some of the issues, but
All right.
I think we're beating our heads up against the wall.
Sounds
Okay.
like the 5-acre plot can already remediate their problems
Yes.
as is.
Yes, they can.
Okay.
So, well, we tried. The majority said they'd like to see something, but we tried, so make a motion. I need a motion, one way or the other.
I don't even know that we need a motion, because we don't need a motion to create the committee. We could make a motion to create the committee and down it.
So just let it die for now.
Okay. Let's move on.
Okay, so we're back to 7.
Let's go back to number 7. It's an ordinance number 8, series 2018. This is a second reading. It's an ordinance amending the sales tax code. Clerk, could you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 8, series of 2018, an ordinance repealing and reenacting sections 3.12.030, 3.12.050, 3.12.060, and 3.12220, amending sections 3.12.170, 3.12.210, 3.12340, adding a new section 3.12455 to chapter 3.12, and repealing section 3.12320, all of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning sales and use tax definitions and administration, collection, and enforcement of the city sales and use tax.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 8, series of 2018 upon the second reading.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Hamrick. Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez? Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, number 8, I'm going to go ahead and open a public hearing. Public hearing is for a new tavern liquor license for 214 and 224 Main Street. And I think a requirement is they bring some of their product with them for the council. No. No?
Agree.
Okay, all seriousness, this is a public hearing, a report from city clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is Kirk and Myra Anderson, sole members of the Canyon City Brews and Bikes Company, who's filed an application for a new tavern liquor license for 224 and 214 Main Street. Notice of this public hearing was given by posting the location and through legal notice in the Daily Record. The applicants are applying for a tavern license, citing that it was cost prohibitive to install a full kitchen along with the cost of the purchase of both properties and other construction needs. They understand and will comply with the necessary food requirements, offering sandwiches and snacks while alcoholic beverages are consumed. As evidence of support in this application relative to the needs of the neighborhood and desires of the adult inhabitants, a petition has been submitted bearing 120 signatures representing 87 from inside city limits, 31 outside city limits, and 2 undetermined. The Andersons have stated that they and their staff will attend the training offered by the city either this spring or this summer. Upon review of the application, appropriate state and city forms and fees have been submitted. The diagram of the premises meets the filing requirements. The applicant has possession of the premises through a lease, and they hold a current sales tax license, and a valid food service license will have to be obtained before issuing. Have you guys talked to Sid about that? Okay. And the company is in good standing with the Secretary of State. So with that, I'd open it up to any questions you may have of these two folks.
Any questions of the applicants? Mr. Meisner?
Sure. Thank you. Are you familiar with the Colorado Liquor Code?
Not completely, but we are getting ready to study it, so, yes.
They will have to go through training, and probably by the time that they open up, they will have, be more familiar with the liquor code and go through the state of Colorado's training. They plan on opening not even up until May, probably. Is that correct?
Around the 1st of May, yes.
But given the time frame from the state of Colorado issuing new licenses, they thought they would come here first and try getting this application and approved first.
So why am I asking this question?
So you're making part of the record so they can be part of the record for their application?
And we can't deny the application.
You can, I'm not sure that's a basis to deny it.
Okay. Will there be a copy of the liquor code on file with your establishment?
Yes.
Speak in the microphone for the record.
Yes.
Thank you. How many employees do you expect to have?
We started out with 10.
How will they be trained on the liquor code and liquor laws?
There's the program tips.
Make sense?
Yes, they'll do that, and they will also be required to attend the city's training through the state of Colorado.
How did you acquire the signatures on the petitions you submitted?
Asking people to sign, going door knocking on Main Street from all the other vendors in town.
Did you make contact with any residents or business owners in the immediate vicinity of your proposed establishment?
Yes,
And their responses are on here?
yes.
Are you fully aware that you're responsible for compliance with the Colorado Liquor Code and that any violations of this code may be held against you and/or your business and result in the suspension or revocation of your liquor license?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Meisner. Any other questions of the applicant? Any comments from the audience? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. I ask for a motion and a second.
You did the questions, you got to make the motion.
I don't have to, but I will. Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the liquor license for Canyon City Brews and Bikes Company, DBA Canyon City Brews LLC at 224 and 214 Main, with the notation that the applicant noted that they are not familiar with the Colorado Liquor Code.
Second, Ms. Gonzalez. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Meisner.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick.
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Thank
Myra
luck.
and Kirk, if you can
Thank
come,
you.
Myra, if you can come in, we'll get you a copy of that liquor code, too.
Okay. I have this license handbook. Is this what you're talking about?
No, you've got a code book about this stuff.
Okay,
We'll come in and get it for you.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to number 10. It's ordinance number 10, series 2018. This is the first reading. It's an ordinance codifying, or is it codifying?
Codifying.
What is it?
Codifying.
Codifying. Okay, codifying November 8th, 2016 special election results. I need three to introduce. Mr. Arquez, Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Hamrick. Could I report from the city attorney, please?
Sure. So this ordinance
need to read
basically
by title.
codifies the vote in November 2016 for the
I'm-
additional,
I'm just rushing through this way too fast. We need to have the clerk read it by title. I'm so sorry.
This is a bill for ordinance number 10, series of 2018, an ordinance amending sections 3.12.040A and B of the Canyon City Municipal Code concerning the codification of the city's 1% increase in sales and use tax for the purpose of the street-related infrastructure improvements and repairs approved at the special election on November 8th, 2016.
Now, thank you.
I'll start over. So this ordinance codifies the vote in November of 2016 for the additional use and sales tax of 1%. That ordinance that called for the special election and set the ballot question didn't actually change the code, so this is just codifying that so that if someone goes online and looks at the code, it's there. It's set out separately because it has a special use and because it sunsets. So it's not just added to the 2% you have now. So that's why it's set out separately. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know, I'm adding language.
That's okay.
That's a good language.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve ordinance number 10, series of 2018 upon the first reading.
Second.
Second, Mr. Hamrick. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez? Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, ordinance number 11, series 2018. This is the first reading. It's an ordinance increasing compensation for the city manager. I need three to introduce. Mr. Meisner, Mr. Hamrick, Mr. Jaquez, thank you. Would you read by title, please?
This is a bill for ordinance number 11, series of 2018, an ordinance increasing compensation for the city administrator.
Okay, could I have a report from the city attorney, please?
Sure. So based upon the performance evaluation for the calendar year 2017, council agreed to, or is agreeing to increase the base compensation for the city administrator. This has to be done by ordinance pursuant to the charter.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council?
I'll just make a comment to clarify for anybody, but in the administrator's contract, there were a number of expectations, and for each of those expectations, if they were met, there was an associated potential a compensation increase. It was all basically, other than the administrator's efforts, it was a mathematical calculation in terms of what expectations he met and what the increase was. And we thank him for his services.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Could I have a motion and a second?
We did.
Your side's really lagging, so make a motion.
My side's really lagging.
Yes, this.
I don't have much of a voice. Mr. Mayor, I make a motion
To approve.
to approve ordinance number 11, series of 2018, to increase compensation for the city administrator
Second?
First reading.
on first reading.
Second.
Second, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, since we're going a little long, I would like to ask for a 5-minute break so that maybe council could visit the facilities. Let's take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
I want some water.
It's going to be like trips.
Okay, we're about to start the exciting second half of council meeting. And that's why we earn our money, $200. What? Are you ready?
$1.39 for this meeting.
$1.39. All right, your tax dollars at work. Okay, number 13, we got everybody here? Number 12,
What
where?
about 12?
Got to do 12.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, number 12 is interview of Royal Gorge Regional Tourism Council candidates. Could I have a report from the city clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Given the fact that Kristen Economy has announced that she would no longer be able to serve on this board, we solicited letters of interest, and as of the close of business on the deadline date of February 28, 2 letters were received. However, on that same date, one of the candidates withdrew their letter of interest. So given that, we would have only one candidate to either council may choose to interview, appoint or not, or extend the deadline for submittals of letters. Be council's pleasure. We do have the individual here. That's Rhonda Sherrato is here with the remaining person that's got the letter of interest.
Okay, could I have a discussion from council? Any discussion?
How long was this advertised for?
I think 2 weeks, 3 weeks. What, Rhonda, 3 weeks?
3 weeks?
The required amount of time?
Sometimes we go 4, but we knew we was interviewing, doing some interviews tonight anyway, and that they were gonna have a meeting here pretty soon, so we thought we'd go ahead and do the 3 weeks.
Mr. Meisner?
Historically, if we've had a qualified candidate that met, or a qualified candidate for a single opening, we've historically appointed and not done interviews.
Okay.
I move that we approve, I don't even know how to say this.
Appoint.
Appoint. I move that we appoint, I'm going to try to say this, Rhonda Sherrato. She helped me. As the, for the Royal Gorge Regional Tourism Council.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hamrick, thank you. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, you call the roll, please.
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Thank you, Ms. Sherrato.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's what's called the tourist train effect. Okay, well, anyway. All right, now, can we go to 13 now? All right, let's do it.
Yes, sir.
We're going to, number 13 is interview at-large council candidates. We have 8. Mr. George Story withdrew his letter at the last minute. So we have Bart, I almost Bart Bakawiak, Greg Dorito, Allison Furman, Jim Harding, Jared Maloney, Brandon Smith, Randy Smith, and Amanda Stetler. So we're here to interview candidates to fill a vacancy on the city council. Each candidate will be introduced and interviewed individually as randomly selected by the draw of names, one at a time. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to introduce themselves and state why they wish to be appointed. Council will ask questions to which each candidate will be given an opportunity to respond. Following each interview, the candidate will be escorted to another room and await the remaining candidates' interviews. Once all candidates have been interviewed individually, they will re-enter the chamber. At this point, any member of the council may move to reject the entire panel of candidates. A second to this motion would be required and a roll call vote taken without any discussion on the motion. Should the motion carry, the entire panel will be released and the selection process for the vacancy will continue. If the motion does not carry, council shall proceed to a vote. Ballots will be distributed and tallied by the city clerk. The candidate having the highest number of votes shall fill the vacancy. In case of a tie, the mayor will break the tie vote. Once a seat has been determined, council will officially appoint them. Are there any questions in the process that we're going to follow tonight? Okay. For what I've just read, I will need a motion in a second.
No, you'll have to go through the process. Go back.
I have to go through the process. Why do you have?
Because after this, you'll have to.
Okay. We don't do this very often, so hopefully we don't have to do it a lot.
Okay, what we'll do now is I'm going to have, everybody's names are on this, and I'm going to go ahead and have John draw one, and that's how we'll proceed. But we'll go ahead and have everybody that's a candidate. Tony, will you meet him over here and have him go back to the back room?
I'll be Vanna White.
Everybody but. Okay, the first one is Amanda Stelter. Amanda, you're first, so you will remain in this room here.
Okay, so each candidate will be given a minute to introduce themselves and state why they wish to be appointed. You're on.
My name is Amanda Stelter, and I moved here in June of 2015 from Los Angeles. And with how popular social media is, I constantly see people voicing their frustrations on social media. And I just thought, what's the point? You know, if you're not going to step up and try and get involved in your community, then why sit there and complain on Facebook and other social media places? And I'm 28 years old. I'll be 29 in a couple weeks, and I'm engaged to be married and hope to start a family here in Canyon City, and would like to make this a great community for my future children, and a community that people would love to move to and stay in and raise children here and stay here for the rest of my life. So I just figured what better way to do that than to get involved with my local community and do something about it.
Okay, are there any questions to start with council? Mr. Meisen, would you like to start on your side?
Absolutely. First of all, I want to thank you for putting in your application. My question would be in regards to stormwater. Briefly, tell me what your position is on making the stormwater fund generate enough revenues to address the problems.
My frustration with the current stormwater situation is that you have a small population of the city residents that are covering the cost of this entire burden. And I think that it should be expanded to, you know, any Fremont County resident that contributes to the stormwater issue. If we were to spread this cost out from just the small select people that are carrying the burden right now to most of Fremont County, we would decrease the amount that the current city residents are paying, because it would broaden that to fall and cover everybody who's actually using it and not just the city residents. I live next to an irrigation ditch, and our house has been flooded. Our basement has been flooded because there's just not enough infrastructure right now to support the current system. And in order to get where we need to be, I think that that needs to be expanded to most of Fremont County and not just city residents.
Thank you.
Mr. Hamrick?
Amanda, how do you feel, excuse me, Amanda, how do you feel about the, just in general terms, I'm not asking you whether you're for a deer hunt or opposed to a deer hunt, but how do you feel as a council person that you would make that decision? Is that just a pure democratic process, or are there other considerations that come into play?
I think that everybody should, you know, have a say in what happens in their community, but I also think that a bigger picture needs to be looked at, and there's really no natural predator for these deer right now. And every day when I drive home, our neighbors down the street put out corn, and every day we have to dodge the deer on our drive home from work. And, you know, it's getting to the point where, you know, these deer are being born with deformities because they're so inbred. And I've been walking my dog on the streets and had deer actually come towards me like they were going to charge me or, you know, do something because they're protecting their babies. And I just think it's gotten to a point where the city is no longer safe with the amount of deer that we have.
Thank you for that. And also, I'd like to echo Councilman Meisner's comments. Thanks for putting in your application
No
and
problem.
showing up tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
First, I'd like to congratulate you on your engagement.
Thank you.
And also for applying at the age of 28. That's very impressive. And it's nice to see younger people be involved in the community. I just have a few questions. How many Canyon City Council meetings have you attended in the year 2018?
This is my first.
Okay. Are you for recreational marijuana or against recreational marijuana?
Against.
And what are your feelings on having a community recreation center in our area?
I think it's very important. I grew up in Southern California, and we had a local YMCA, and they hosted dances for the middle school students, and there was a summer camp for kids whose parents worked and did not have an opportunity to, take the summer off and spend summer with them. And I had a very positive experience with the YMCA, and I made many friends through the YMCA, and I think that a recreation center for our children is very important.
Okay, and my last question is, have you read any of the master plans on the Canyon City's website?
I have not, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gonzalez?
Hi there.
Hi.
When you were talking about social media,
Oh my God.
I just turned it on. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
A lot of what we see on social media and people putting their opinions out are a lot of misconceptions. How would you handle those misconceptions and that are brought forth on social media?
I think the best thing you can do is just try and be honest and lay out as best you can and as clearly as you can what the real circumstances are. I think a lot of people get very involved emotionally and tend to overlook some of the more important facts because they get worked up about a certain issue. I know that, the Riverwalk extension was a very hot topic, and there was a lot of people who were misinformed on a lot of the stuff that was going on with that. And I think it's very easy in a smaller community for one person to say, this is what I heard, and then it kind of snowballs from there. So I would think really the only thing you can do is just do your best to put out the facts that are correct and hope that enough people will listen and read and understand.
Thank you.
Mr. Arquez?
Thank you for replying. What do you feel is the purpose for city council with regards to the town of Canyon City?
I think it's a great sounding board, I guess I should say, for the issues that residents have. I know that you guys don't control every single thing that happens in city council here, but I think it's a great forum for citizens to voice how they feel about certain issues, and it's a great way for people to, try and see change, is to talk to the city council and have their voices heard and see what their options are as far as, changing laws and stuff like that. But I think mainly it's just a good place to have people voice their opinions and just explain what changes they want to see made within the city.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So, welcome, Bart. We give you 1 minute to say about yourself, tell us a little bit, and then we'll go into questions. So, take it away.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to address you and having submitted my name for the council. I'd like to bring some interesting and new ideas to the council. I think my prior experience, I'm assuming you guys got the letters. So to try and keep it short, since this isn't the Academy Awards, I think I've got a lot of experience in government work, doing RFPs, doing intergovernmental agreements, and a lot of it being in public safety, but of course public safety tends to encompass a lot of other departments. So started out my career early on with the City of Orlando doing transportation engineering, so I've got a little bit of background in that as well.
Okay. Let's start over here. Frank, Mr. Arguez, would you like, while you're drinking?
Okay. You saw, how many council meetings have you attended or watched on TV?
Since being in the city, I've only lived in the city 3 years now. I would estimate 12 to 24, but I usually look at the agenda items to see if there's items of interest.
Okay. And based on that, I guess you realize that this isn't one of those typical 9-to-5 jobs.
No, I thought tonight was a test.
It's a lot of work that goes into it. We spend a lot of time doing things and stuff like that. So it's very important, in my opinion, that you have the support of your family members to get involved with this, because council takes a lot of time away from your family. And so that's very important to me, along with all the other things that we do.
Yes,
Do you have
I
a-
asked permission of my wife, who's here. And my children actually are older, they're 19 up to 24, and that's kind of another reason I'm interested in serving on the council, is I want them to stay here. And I see a lot of kids that grow up here, but they tend to leave the area and then they come back to retire. And that's because of job opportunities here.
Okay, Ms. Gonzalez?
Hi there.
Hello.
Thank you for putting your application in. How would you help address misconceptions that are brought forth through the community when people are upset about certain topics?
Misconceptions about what? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
About agenda items or about items that we have discussed here at council?
You mean misinformation when people come to meetings and they start talking about things that
Yes.
we aren't really talking about?
Yes.
I think there has to be a little bit more public outreach, and I think a lot of it goes back to nowadays, people don't get the newspaper anymore. It used to be you could read on things and figure things out. Now people get most of their news from their neighbor, or CNN if that's what you watch. But so I don't know that the city necessarily, or even the county for that matter, does a good enough job getting that word out to people. And I don't know what the answer to that is. That wouldn't cost money.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Smith?
What is your position for, are you for recreational marijuana or against recreational marijuana?
To put it bluntly, I would be against it.
Okay. And what are your feelings on trying to acquire a community recreation center in our area?
A community what, I'm sorry?
Recreation
A
center?
recreation center? I would be more for that than recreational marijuana. I think that brings into the city some interesting facets that we don't necessarily like, but I like to have a a recreational district that's a little bit more involved.
Okay. And have you read any of the master plans on the Canyon City website?
I couldn't hear her again, sorry.
Have
Been
you
in the fire
read-
department 25 years,
Have you read any of the master plans, the Canyon City master plans on our website?
I've read some of it. I've gone over quite a few things in the last few weeks. I've also looked and keeping an eye out on the trailhead that was, what was it, the sanitation district. They didn't vote that in, did they? As far as extending the trail. So I've been keeping an eye on that too.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hamrick?
Yes, when council is faced with sometimes controversial decisions, there's people for, people against. And I'm not asking you, directly whether you're for a deer harvest or against a deer harvest, but stepping back from it a little bit, what should be a council person's approach to an issue where there are perhaps feelings on both sides that seem to be equally divided? Should be a straight democracy approach, or what do you think?
I would take the same approach that I had taken when I was doing homeowners associations meetings, and I was on those boards. The one homeowner association I was on, there was 5,000 residents. We had a $22 million budget, and I can tell you that the meetings there were much more contentious than here. So my thought process is a lot like the mayor's. I listen to what everybody has to say because I'm just up there to basically put in a motion that hopefully is the majority of what the people want. It's not necessarily about what I want.
Thank you. One other question. Are you on Facebook?
No.
Thank you.
Mr. Meisner?
Thank you for replying. My question is in regards to stormwater. As briefly as possible, what's your philosophy in terms of trying to generate enough revenues to offset the expenses associated with controlling stormwater.
Controlling the stormwater?
Yes.
I believe that if you were to look into a little bit more of a public-private partnership ideas with private entities to where they have some advantage, whether it be a tax advantage or a revenue advantage to them, to where maybe they provide the initial infrastructure and then have that paid out over a period of time to where the city doesn't have to have all that funded up front. I think that would be a really good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bart. All right, thanks for coming. And we're going to go ahead and give you a minute to say what you like about yourself, and then we'll go into questions. So go ahead.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council. Thank you guys for giving me time to introduce myself and express my interest. Being a member of council is something I've kicked around for a little while, but I've lived in Lincoln Park for the last 10 years, so it hasn't been a viable option for me. I've been a business owner for 17 years now. I was raised with the belief that you got to reinvest in your community, and I think that there is a lot of issues that are coming before us as we're growing. Colorado's in a state of rapid growth. Northern Colorado is starting to kind of max out on their housing market, and it's only a matter of time before we start seeing some attrition down here to Southern Colorado. And I think that the time to jump on some of these opportunities is here and now. As a business owner, I think I could represent and bring some hopefully balanced opinions and hopefully find some middle ground on some of these issues that seem to have left and right, but very little middle. So, thank you.
Greg. Mr. Meisner, question?
Thanks for applying, Greg.
Thanks, Jim.
My question would be in regards to stormwater. Briefly, give me your thoughts in terms of how you would address stormwater in terms of generating sufficient revenues to offset the necessary expenses to do something with stormwater.
You know, stormwater seems to be one of those complex issues that there's so many moving parts to it. It's hard to say that there's one simple fix to it. I heard the suggestion of a sales tax increase tonight. I don't know, after some of the tax increases that we've had in the community, that would be an option. I've heard of the doubling. In my mind, I would like to see the possible expansion of possibly encompassing the county to help assist in sharing some of that weight, because I do believe that there is a lot of what we consider Canyon City that is actually in the county, and they're, you know, basically Canyon City citizens. They just don't have the placard. I think also that, you know, the economy is in a state of expansion, and the cost of living is going up every day. We see it in minimum wage, we see it in our insurance, we see it in our groceries, we see it in our housing. Unfortunately, a natural side effect is that some of these utilities are going to go up. I guess it would be our job to try and find a way to minimize that and hopefully share the costs if there's other entities that are involved in the cost.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hamrick?
Hi, Greg. How are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you tonight, John?
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Are you on Facebook?
I am.
Thank you. We've wrestled a little bit with the deer question tonight, and my question is not so much whether you are in favor or not in favor of a deer harvest, but stepping back from that a little bit, but talking about the process, given a controversial issues where emotions may run high on both sides, how do you think a council member should resolve an issue like that when it comes down pretty close to 50-50?
You mentioned Facebook, so I'm not sure if you're intimating that maybe there's some correlation between the dissemination of information through Facebook and social media, or if you're just speaking within the council chambers. So I guess I'll answer it kind of twofold. Unfortunately, we live in an era of social media and lots of information being disseminated to the public, and unfortunately it doesn't all have to be validated and proved truthful. And usually the stuff that's least truthful is the stuff that's most prevalent. The hardest thing I think that communities are facing is that community contact through social medias. I think that there's definitely a place within city and county entities where they have to find a way to communicate successfully the facts through these entities. Within the chambers, when there's a split, I think that you have to take personal feelings aside and you have to figure out what's best for the community. For my personal feelings, I'm not a hunter. I'm also not opposed to hunting. It's just not a life choice I make. It would depend on the economic impact and how much it was affecting the community at large.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Greg, what is your feelings on trying to pursue getting a community recreation center in the area?
I think that the bridge, which is up the street from us, less than a half a block, has been an excellent model for the need for things for our youth to do. There's, as far as a youth center, as you put it, I'm not entirely sure that the community is ready to make that economic endeavor, but I think building public support through entities like the bridge and several of these community groups that reach out to our youth and try and give them something to do, I think those are the way that you build public support enough to where one day you can make the expenditure for something like that, because a youth center is not a willy-nilly purchase. It's a multi-million-dollar endeavor.
So beyond youth center, that would include an aquatic center and senior citizen, and same answer?
You know, the senior citizen factor ties into where you're always going to be fighting the fact that the gyms in town, a lot of times their insurance and things like that will aid in their gym membership, or they have reduced rates. So in their mind, some of that is being already taken care of, those needs are being met in some ways. I think that you would actually have to poll the seniors to find out if they felt like that was something that was going to be of use to them, or if it was going to be something that would be available to them but they would not really use because it would be off-putting, you know, if there wasn't like a senior hour or a time of day that appealed to them. Because typically when you have the two spectrums of age, there's some friction intermixing on social levels from time to time.
Okay. How many Kenyon City Council meetings have you attended or viewed?
Have I attended or viewed? Over the years, more than I can count. In the last year, not more than 2 or 3, I would guess.
Okay. And are you for recreational marijuana or against recreational marijuana?
Recreational marijuana is a difficult subject. It is not one easily answered. I can't give you a simple yes or a no. I will tell you this. Initially, when recreational marijuana was presented to Colorado, the case that was made, the laws that were put into effect of what they were going to do to maintain it, I viewed it much along the ways that I would view alcohol. It's a sales tax revenue stream. I've never seen it any more invasive than alcohol. We've embraced alcohol as a community and as a state for many years. However, I think that we've had some growing pains in the recreational use of it. I think we've had some growing pains in the home growth area. And I think that we're starting to dial in on the problems, but I think we still have a ways to go before I feel supportive of the issue as a whole. So, like I said, I can't tell you it's a definitive yes or no. It was something that I was in great support of initially, just because of the tax revenues and the lack of invasive nature that I initially perceived. However, some of the controls that have not been maintained in place have caused a definite shift and an error on the side of caution in my part.
And have you read any of the master plans on the Canyon City website?
Not on the website. I have read I tend to be more of a paper guy. I have read the River Corridor. I've read some of the master plan. I've read the downtown revitalization. I think they're all moving in the right direction. It's just a matter of, you know, plans have to be paid for, and we have to figure out a way to pay for them and keep the community the same community that it was yesterday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez.
Hi, Greg.
Hi, how are you tonight?
Doing well. As a business owner myself, I get a lot of people who come in just to talk about city council, issues that are on the ballot or issues that are out there. You run a very busy restaurant. How would you handle that in a lunch hour rush or as people are coming and going into your restaurant?
I have given that some thought, and my intended reaction, if appointed, would be much the same of how I would deal with people that are soliciting money or salespeople. I am more than happy to sit down with them. I have office hours every day, and I'm more than happy to make an appointment with them. But I don't necessarily have the ability to provide the immediate gratification of right here, right now. So if they wanted to take the time, if they felt passionate enough that they wanted to schedule an appointment or come back at a time that was appropriate, I'd be more than happy to speak with them, but not right here, not right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
How are you doing, Greg?
Good. How are you tonight, Frank?
Good. You know, we talked about issues, stormwater is a big issue, the deer deal is a big issue, our trash deal we have to deal with a big issue. But a while back,
Yes, sir.
this council did something that got a lot of, and I'm talking about with the paper, a lot of negative response. And that's with regards to the deal that, well, not the deal, but the outcome that came with the golf course with regards to the water rates. What was your feeling with regards to that? Did you see negatives or did you see positives? How did you feel about that?
You're referencing the 4 Mile Golf Course,
That's
not Shadow
correct.
Hills, correct? Okay. I looked at that and I saw a decision that was probably not a very easy council decision, because on one hand, you have a prospective housing development that a golf course is a key part to it. We've already lost one golf course. The unfortunate sidebar to that is that the gentleman that is the investor, as I understand the issue, is basically kind of in transition. It's not that he's invested in our community, it's really a investment property for him. That being said, I will always be more in support of people and things that are invested in our community and not just looking to make money off of our community. I would rather have seen money or a discount break go to somebody who lives here or somebody who wants to reinvest here. And I probably would be more inclined to take an approach of a payment plan that would be deferred upon sale of the property or something along those lines, as opposed to a gifted water rate. But once again, there's a lot more moving parts than what just the John Q. Public sees. Not an easy decision, and it's certainly not an appealing one to lose our last golf course in Canyon City when it has actually, golfing has become kind of a community pastime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Okay, thank you, Greg. We're done.
Thank you.
Next.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Rick.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Merloni.
How are you?
Merloni, how are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you.
So what we're going to do is give you 1 minute to talk something about yourself. Take as much as you like, as long as it doesn't exceed 1 minute, and then we'll have questions. So, and thanks for coming.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me, and thanks for all you guys do. If you don't know me, I've been a Canyon City resident for about 27 years now. Currently serve on the Chamber of Commerce Board. I'm a past chamber president, currently chairman of the Planning Commission. I was appointed in 2016 to the Planning Commission. And I ran for election for City Council for 2014, and unfortunately had to move out of town and had to vacate my seat, but came back a year later, immediately getting back into my civic duties. So I'm a doer. I'm one of those 20% that just do. I'm not here because I have ideas and think I can do better. I'm the guy that does stuff. I know everyone has great ideas, and that's why they want to get on council, and then you find out ideas are great, but we need people that are willing to put in the time and the effort and the implementation. So that's kind of my drive. I think what I want to see for Canyon City is exactly what all you guys want to see for Canyon City and what most of the residents of Canyon City want to see. We want growth, we want jobs, we want development, we want to improve aesthetics.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you. Let's start on this side, Mr. Marquez.
We're sorry you left, but we're glad you came back.
Well, thanks, Frank.
It's been a while since you were on council, and I know you keep up with things that go on in council. What differences have you seen from the time you were on to the time that it's at the point it is now?
I think at the time I got on council, it was a lot different. Not better, not worse. It was mostly, well, I'm not going to say names, but it was a bunch of, it was all business-oriented people, and I think that was the direction the city was going at the time. And from there, it's kind of melded into a melting pot of, you know, DOC and retired and realtors, of course. I don't think any of the direction from 2014 has changed. I think everyone still is moving forward with improving our town and doing what we can to, you know, enlighten other communities to what we have to offer here. And that's, I think, what we were doing in 2014.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Hi there.
Hi.
A lot of times we, and I'm sure you know this being on council before, issues that we talk about get misconstrued to a different, into a completely different story. How would you handle that within the community, in social media, or while you're on the community?
Well, you can't argue on, you can't do too much on social media. That's just a losing battle, first of all. So I don't, even when I was a councilman, I did not participate in those conversations. As far as, well, you see it all the time, people misunderstand what's being said or what's being done. And that's, I think, one of my strengths is I'm just a common sense person. So I rely on guys like John Hamrick to tell me the ins and outs of what I'm reading. But mostly I'm the common sense guy, and I'll just get to what the audience is trying to hear, and if that's not coming across right, then we're not doing our job properly.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Hey.
Hi.
I'm glad to have you here. How many master plans have you reviewed on the Canyon City website or on hard copy?
Over the years, there's so many versions of plans, but US 50 corridor, I was involved in the river corridor plan just most recently, downtown plan. I've looked at those three in particular over the last several years.
Okay. And what is your feelings on trying to get a community recreation center in the area?
I think that's important. I won't say that I know a whole lot about it, but I know it's something that is talked about a great deal, so I would not be opposed to investigating that. I'm not sure where the council is on implementing something like that, but.
How many city council meetings have you attended?
In my life?
Well, in the last year.
Well, in the last year, I haven't come to this particular meeting. I've watched it on television several times. I was pretty preoccupied with planning commission meetings. And I've attended some general government meetings.
Okay. And as far as recreational marijuana concerned, are you for or against recreational marijuana?
Well, I was on council when we had to tackle that. Personally, I don't use marijuana, and I don't care if you do or you don't. I don't know if it's a good idea are we getting to the point of should we have recreational shops in city limits and county kind of question, or I'm not
yeah,
sure what the question
sure,
is.
yes.
How do I feel about that? I like it the way it is. I don't think anything needs to be changed. Now, if the community gets together and says, most of us want recreational marijuana stores in Canyon City, then so be it. but I don't feel there's any, I don't feel the necessity to address it.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hammack?
Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Lou.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for putting in your request. So we talked earlier this evening about the deer question, and I'm not so much asking you whether you're in favor of a hunt or opposed to a hunt, but it's kind of like almost the marijuana question. If you have strong feelings on both sides, as a city council person, you know, stepping back and looking at the overall process, how do you think a city council person should address an issue or help decide an issue where it may be fairly well split? Should it be a democratic process, or what are the criteria that a city council person should use to help decide that question?
So I'm not opposed to hunting, and I'm not a hunter. I grew up in New York. I don't know, listening to Jim tonight, I didn't understand what we were talking about, but Jim explained that if a deer is in your yard and you have an archery license and you're in season, you can shoot the deer in your yard. I didn't know that. So my opinion on this, I don't even, you know, I would have to look into this a lot more, as Jim explained. It's 50-50. So as a councilman, if you are completely split between people say we can't shoot deer in city limits, and the other 50% say we have to control the population of deer because this, and this reason. If the people that say we have to control the deer population are hunters and they understand why we hunt and what's happening on the negative side to the deer, and it makes perfect sense, then we have to make that decision. And we have to explain to the people that are opposed to it, and why are they opposed to it? Is it just animal rights? Is it, you know, what are the reasons? And if the two groups can come together and say, hey, we're doing this for the good of the community and the good of the deer, then I think council would make the right decision.
Thank you. Jerry, are you on Facebook?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Hammack? Mr. Meisner.
Thank you. Thanks, Jerry, for putting in your letter of interest. You're really gutsy doing it twice, but.
I got to finish.
My question is philosophically with stormwater. Just briefly, kind of give me an overview in terms of how would you handle, or what's your philosophy in terms of how do we take and generate sufficient revenues to handle the expenses that are associated with taking care of stormwater?
Well, I'd have to ask, why don't county residents participate in that, footing that bill? That would be my first question. I've been off council for a while, so I don't know the answer to that, but that would be the first thing I would ask. From there, infrastructure is infrastructure. If you have to do it, you have to find out how to fund it. I'm not in favor of doing a sales tax, like Mr. Cullen was saying today, to help fund stormwater. But there's, you know, you guys are talking about doubling the fee, but that still doesn't address all of the needs. Is that correct? It's still short even if you double the fees. So there's a bigger problem here. I mean, you can double the fees and piss everyone off, but next year you're going to double them again, and then you're going to double them again. So honestly, I think there's a bigger conversation needed for the stormwater issue.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jerry.
escape.
Welcome, Allison.
Hi, thank
Raise
you,
your hand.
Mayor
Put
and
your
City
name
Council
in.
members. Thank you.
What we'll do is let the other ones, we give you a minute to say something about yourself, and then each one of the council people will ask you questions.
Okay.
Go.
Don't know if I can fill a whole minute, but
That's
my
okay.
name is Allison, and I've been in the community for over 5 years. I'm pretty passionate about Canyon City. I see some really wonderful things happening here. I think it's a rising tide that's about to break down a dam, and I want to be part of the committee that sees things going in the right direction. I want to see growth happen. I want to see it happen the right way. Small town like this, a lot can happen. So me, smart, determined, passionate. I think that's about all I can say about myself. I don't know what else.
You win points when you don't talk a lot, too. I'm just kidding. So, Mr. Meisner, why don't you start off?
Well, Allison, thank you for submitting your letter. My question is in regards to stormwater. I would ask you to kind of share your thoughts in terms of how you would tackle the stormwater dilemma in terms of generating enough revenues to pay for the expenses that are associated with taking care of stormwater.
Well, from what I understand, it's a small percentage of people that are paying for the majority of it. It seems like there does need to be some revenue that's set aside for it. Clearly, it's a big issue. All the trash going into the rivers, it just needs to be mitigated properly. I think, from my standpoint, the tax burden should be spread around everybody that is using water that goes into our river. But that would be how I would see to fix that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hamrick?
Thank you, Allison, for coming and submitting your application to us. First off, I had a question. What's a traditional blacksmith?
So it's a coal, anvil, hand crank blower, no power tools. You weld actually in the forge, so I don't use modern equipment.
So so I understand, that's ornamental type work, is that what that is, as opposed to
Right.
like equine?
Well, correct, yeah, so there would be shoeing horses, which is one aspect of it. But mine was structural integrity, so building chandeliers, staircase pieces, but it was some ornamental stuff, some gates and things to that effect.
Thank you. One of the questions that we were talking about tonight was a potential deer harvest, and my question is not so much whether you're in favor or opposed to a deer harvest, but when a question is close and there are people that are passionate on both sides, stepping back a little bit, what do you think a council person's approach to solving that problem or dealing with that issue should be? Should it be just a democratic thing that if somebody shows up with 51% of the votes, that's the way it should go? Or what would be the appropriate approach for a council person?
Well, I think this is actually a hot button topic for me, a little over the garbage receptacle issue. However, both of them are quite important, obviously, to the public. But Democratic votes are great because when you get into a position where you can't really make a decision and everybody is feeling passionate about it one way or the other, that's great. But I think in a position like this, dealing in a small community where there is a ton of people being overran by the deer, there's definitely a solution that needs to come to the foreground. Having deer run around being hurt and injured and dying in other people's yards or running into traffic, I mean, that's a pretty major issue. Coming to a solution on it, yeah, I guess voting on that democratically, I suppose, but I don't really know the process.
Thank you. Are you on Facebook?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Smith?
Hello, Allison.
Hi.
I was wondering, what are your feelings about City Council trying to get a community recreation center in the area?
I think would be an added bonus to the community as it grows, because I think there's going to be a need of that younger families that are looking for that kind of recreational facility. Are you talking about more of like the RV spot?
Like
or
an aquatic center.
Like the swimming pools and the
Yeah,
workout?
Workout things for
Okay.
senior citizens and for youth and.
Okay, so more like a YMCA type of thing?
Similar, yeah.
Okay. No, I think it would be great. The location needs to be right. Obviously, taking over land or trying to buy stuff from the community to find the right spot would be important. But it sounds like the community wanted it from, what we read in the newspaper.
Okay. How many Canyon City Council meetings have you attended?
2.
2. And on our city website, we have a number of master plans that have been adopted. Have you become familiar with any of those master plans?
I have a little bit because I was involved in the Downtown Development Authority for a small time when it was first coming together. So I have become somewhat familiar with it back then, and then not anything recently other than how it would impact some of my property that sits on the other side of the river.
Okay. And as far as recreational marijuana is concerned and having stores for recreational marijuana in our community, are you for or against that?
I'm against it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gonzalez.
Good evening.
Hi.
How would you address miscommunicated issues that are brought forth as you're out in the community?
How would I address them in the community? Well, taking the garbage incident tonight, a lot of people just read the headlines of what they see. They don't really read into it. So I think education to other people, taking the time to communicate what the actual bottom line says is really important. It's really important for everybody to know what's there and to really listen to other people's concerns. And at least know what the topic is and how to describe it to them.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cantz?
Knowing some of the issues we've been dealing with, stormwater, deers, ordinances with trash and everything else, which one of those three do you think is basically, I guess, the most controversial or the most talked about with regards to the citizens and their concerns with regards to what we're going to do with each one of these deals?
Well, to me, I think stormwater is probably the most important just because it impacts our community. But I've heard a lot of feedback from property owners around town that are just overrun with deer. There's a woman out on the end of 15th, and I think it's, I can't remember the street there, but it's like Short or something. Anyway, she complains about the deer chasing off her people that come in to use their storage units. So I know it's a valid concern and people are worried about their properties. Sometimes it's impacting their customers that come to their, facilities. So I think both of them are really quite important, but stormwater to me would probably be more important.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Allison. Hi, Randy.
Good evening.
That's the chair. That's the one with the trap door under it. Just go ahead. Go ahead. No, really. It's okay.
Let's do it.
So,
Chair, 1, 2, or 3.
You didn't fall through.
welcome, Randy. Thanks for putting your name in. And what we do is give you the first minute to talk to you about yourself. If you use the whole minute, that's fine. If you use less, that's fine again. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll ask you questions.
All right. Good evening. My name is Randy Smith. I appreciate the opportunity for this interview. My history, I've been in government from one form or another for 33 years, 21 years in the Air Force, 8 years with DOC, and about another 3 with the Feds. Up until last summer, we decided to go ahead and expand our small business here in town. So I left the federal institution in Florence, where now I deal with sewing machine repair. So given the option, I will take the sewing machine repair. During my tour at the Air Force, I was medical. I started out in search and rescue. Eventually went as a surgery tech, did the operating room for a while. I promoted myself to surgical supervision, and I achieved 2 master's degrees. One was in medical case management, and the other forensic psychology. Secondary to that, I went ahead and got my certification as a psychotherapist. I do not practice. It's hard enough for me to keep myself in line rather than anybody else.
Okay.
I have 3 kids. 2 of them are in the Air Force. One's in the Netherlands, serving at a NATO base. The other one is at Nellis, and my youngest son is going to graduate May 11th from Pensacola Christian College, where he's studying theology and music appreciation theory, something. I don't know what he's going to do. So if anybody has a daughter that might be interested in marrying him, so he can be
Okay.
supported. That would
Gotta
be
take
great.
her, gotta take her.
Okay, we're kind of straying away from the subject here, but that's okay. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. That's your minute.
That's it, sir.
Thank you. So, kids, you'd like to start?
Okay. Randy, what do you feel Canyon City has that wants to draw people to come here to retire, open a business? And based on what you feel on that, what do you feel as a council member, if you were picked, you could do to broaden that aspect of yours?
One of the reasons that we came here after touring the world in the Air Force is it was the climate, it was the small town atmosphere that we had. And I'd like to, I guess, define the difference between prospering in a small town and growing in a small town. A lot of people are afraid of the growth. They want that small town atmosphere. So I agree that there has to be some sort of balance between those. I want to see us prosper, which means all those businesses in the downtown area, I want them to go ahead and accumulate the funds to increase the funding for taxes and everything like this for the city, so we can do more, but kind of keep it as that small town atmosphere. What we offer is obviously the climate. We offer that for retirement communities. We offer that for the small town environment. I grew up in a very small town, and I loved knowing everybody. I loved knowing who I grew up with, keeping in contact with those people throughout the years, and then coming back for like Blossom Festival, what is it, 77 years, and meeting people over and over again. So for me, that's what would draw me here. I would not want to live in the Springs. Pueblo's too big for me. I just like everything we have to offer here, not only the businesses, but also the recreational activities that we have here as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Hi, Randy. Can you hear me okay? Sorry.
Do your mic now.
Hi, Randy.
Yes, that's better, thank you.
How would you, excuse me. How would you address miscommunicated issues that are brought forth in the community or on social media?
I don't do a lot of social media. Since I was in the prison system, it just never interested me. So as far as Twitters and Facebook and things like that, our business has the Facebook account, but I really don't participate in it that much. As far as transgressions between the community members, it's mainly if someone has a problem, bring me a solution, or leave it up to the council to fix it. And you'll just have to, well, I don't want to say go with what the council says, but have an open communication. There's a lot of things we need to talk about. You've listed a lot of them tonight, between the deer harvesting and the stormwater and all the water rights that we have around here. I think open communication is the best. And one of the main things, especially if Carrie's doing it over here, is getting it out into the newspaper, letting people know what's going on, and have everybody who's involved come to these council meetings. Keep that back room opened up.
Okay, thank you.
We seem to be able to do that quite a bit, by the way. so-
Recently, yes.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Smith?
Hey, Randy. How many of the Canyon City master plans are you familiar with or read?
There's a lot of plans that are going on right now. The master plan that I'm most aware of, I think, is it 2014? Is it 2012 or 2014? Then we have the Riverwalk, the Highway Corridor, Centennial. There's a lot of plans that are out there right now. As far as being familiar with one or the other, I think they're kind of a conglomerate. So I think if you look at one, you're going to have to look at almost all of them just to see what we're going to do. I think the first one that I saw proposed a roundabout on 6th Avenue, or 6th Street down here. I've seen them where they've proposed bridges and tunnels and things like that. I've seen the bump outs. I've seen a lot of other things that obviously the city council is going to be taking on in the next few years. Again, I'm for the growth of Canyon City and prosperity. So if any of these master plans will allow us to do that, then I'm going to be for it. Hopefully I can be a part of it.
As far as a community recreation center, where is your interest in the city council pursuing trying to get a recreation center in our area?
A recreation center focusing on what?
Similar to a YMCA.
I'd be all for it. I had joined Ys in the past. In the military, if you're familiar with it, we had, I don't want to say free gyms, but any opportunity for us to be physically fit is a bonus for everybody. And like I said earlier in the introduction, climate gives us that opportunity, whether it's bicycling or hiking or whatever. During my initial years here, I volunteered for the Fremont Search and Rescue. I didn't realize how much activity it required at that time, jumping off the sides of mountains and almost drowning in the rivers trying to save somebody else, especially during the build your own boat. That was exciting. I would like to see something similar to like what Salida has, possibly. Something for everyone. That would be maybe either a water park or something indoor, an aquatic center, something that we could all utilize. And I'd probably put it maybe near the college on the west side of town, if there's some room over there near the areas.
How many Canyon City Council meetings have you attended?
Are you counting? So if I
Well, I know I've seen
said,
you a lot.
I first started, we first got involved in more of the city issues when they first started talking about the Highway 50 corridor. And I started getting involved in the vision committees and looking into this and that. So I would think that after that committee disbanded, that would have been around the spring of last year. So what do you have, 52 a year or so? Probably about 26 or 30 since last summer,
Okay.
off and on.
And as far as having recreational marijuana stores in Canyon City, are you for or against that?
Against.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamrick.
Hi, Randy. Thanks for coming, and thanks for submitting your application to us. Excuse me. One of the issues that we were talking about tonight was whether to have a deer harvest or not. And I'm not asking so much whether you are personally in favor or opposed to that, but when you have an issue where there's perhaps feelings on both sides, and it may be a close issue in terms of numbers of people that support or oppose a particular thing, but stepping back, how do you think a city council person should try to resolve that for the people of Canyon City?
I think you're going to need to look at other options rather than killing, not killing. I mean, there's got to be more out there. When I was at the Air Force Academy, we had a large deer population there, and I happened to work in the medical facility. They decided, without council, to have all the cadets round up the deer and relocate them. We had a lot of injuries that year because they were trying to capture the deer, trying to ride them, trying to do things like that. We might be able to work on other issues. We might be able to work with Zach with Wildlife to see if we can relocate some of these deer. I don't want to bring in a mountain lion or a bear to eradicate anything like that. I agree with Mr. Meisner as far as killing a deer with a bow. That's really not going to help us at all. What do they feed on? Can we mitigate the vegetation in a process, or maybe use fencing or something else, deter them from being around? I would say just look at options and get the public's feedback.
Thank you. And I think I heard the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway. Are you on Facebook?
Our business is on Facebook. If I write something on Facebook, it's rather lengthy, I ramble, and my wife doesn't like that. So, yes, I am, but I don't participate.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Meisner?
Thanks for submitting your application, Randy. My question's in regards to stormwater. Just philosophically, where are you at in terms of, what's your thought in terms of a solution to generating enough revenue to handle or to pay for the expenses that are associated with stormwater?
This is another hot issue. I've thought about it a little bit. I've thought about all the taxes that we pay. I thought about we, as a community, pay for the fire department, we pay for the police, we pay for the library, we pay for road construction, we pay for snow piles. As a community, we pay for all of those. I haven't used the fire department. The police hasn't come to my house. I snow blow my own driveway. I do go to the library every once in a while. So it's my effect that as a community, just having a certain amount of people pay for this particular area, I see it as almost an insurance that maybe we all can, and if we can get the county involved, to possibly all pay for the stormwater fees, which would, as a residual, make it less of a payment for everyone else. So instead of the $6, $12, whatever, it might be in 10 cents or 25 cents or something like that across the board. Now, I don't know, because I haven't got the books that you guys have. So as far as research, again, we'd have to redo it, but it's all about options. Think of outside the box. Think of other things that we could possibly do. That's it.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Randy. We're done, and we're going to go on to the next one. Just
Yes, sir.
follow Mr. O'Rourke. That may or may not get you in trouble. I'm not sure. Hi, Jim. If you could pull that mic up to you, because we want to be able to hear you. Is the little green light on?
Yes, sir.
Oh, great. That's the first two test questions, by the way.
Okay.
So, welcome, and thanks for putting your name in. And what we're going to do now is give you a minute to talk about yourself. You can use up to a minute, you can use less than a minute, and then after that, one of the council members will ask you a question. So, there you go, start.
I was born and raised in Canyon City. I've held several jobs. My last one being with the Department of Corrections, 26 years. Worked up through the rank to captain when I retired. I retired last April. And worked at Ideal Cement. Went to Elko, Nevada for a while in 87, 86 when things got bad and the economy kind of died down, construction. Right now, volunteer with the Boys and Girls Club. We help mentor over there with Terry Hamilton. Biggest thing is, after seeing Canyon City when we were little, growing up, teenagers, and now working and then now retired, I like this town. I did leave for about 10 years, went to different states, work, and about 4 years ago decided, you know what, retirement, I want to come back to Canyon City. I like Canyon City, this is where I feel comfortable. And during my time at DOC, I discovered some things about myself that I wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to give back to the city and help. When I saw your ad, the progressive thinking, moving forward, get Canyon back into the forefront.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Would you like to start, Mr. Meisner?
Thank you, Jim, for putting in your application.
Sir.
My question is in regards to stormwater. Just give me your thoughts in terms of how you would handle the situation in terms of trying to generate sufficient revenues to cover the expenses associated with taking care of stormwater.
That's a hard, tricky subject because nobody wants their taxes to go up. People think taxes are too high as it is. That's going to meet a lot of resistance from what I hear from people in Canyon City. Stormwater is a concern. The more asphalt, concrete, the more absorption we take away, it's got to go somewhere. And we're seeing that down on 9th Street, 15th Street, a few other streets that get flooded all the time. So looking for a solution to get some revenue, I think the public is our best resource. We have so many people out there that have great ideas that are afraid to bring them forward for whatever their reasons are. But a few people trying to come up with a solution, I don't think you're going to have near the success as if we get the buy-in from the community and get some ideas flowing, because there's so many creative people out there that can come up with things that we could never even dream about.
Thank you. Mr. Hamrick?
Hi, Jim. Thank you for putting in your application and letter of interest and for being here tonight. One of the issues that we talked about tonight was a potential hunt for controlling a deer population. And I'm not so much interested in whether you're for a deer hunt or opposed, but when you have roughly equal numbers of people on both sides of the issues of that issue that may have strong feelings, how should a council person approach that issue to help resolve it?
I believe the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And right now, you're saying we're about a 50-50 split. We have to then take and look at the city as a whole. Are they a nuisance? Are they hurting us in some way? Or are they causing accidents? If they are, then we have to do the unpleasant part of our job and say, we're going to make some recommendations, and this is how we're going to do it.
Thank you. Just another question. Are you on Facebook?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Hello, Jim.
Good morning.
I am curious, have you reviewed any of the Canyon City master plans?
Have I reviewed the Canyon City master
Yeah, so
plans?
we have a number of master plans that can be found on the website, whether it was the downtown plan or the Highway 50 corridor plan or the Centennial Park plan.
Briefly, just touched over a few of them a little bit. My biggest interest now is, like I said, 28 or 26 plus years in the prison, working shift work. You don't have a whole lot of time for anything other than work and family. So the last year that I've been out, I've been trying to integrate myself into the system, talking to people, business owners, getting my finger on the pulse, finding out what people like, don't like, what irritates them, what they'll put up with. So no, to your question, I haven't sat down and read every one of them. This is something I'm exploring, I'm passionate about. My first step, like I said, was getting into the Girls and Boys Club, giving back, and testing the waters, kind of, so to speak. So it's something that, to make captain, you have to be pretty good at deciphering policies, procedures, forward thinking, looking at problems, solving them, and I've been known throughout my career as a problem solver. I don't sit here and beat a dead horse. We go and we do action. We get all of our information, all of our facts, get as much information as we can, formulate a plan, and then we implement it. And we look for the best people to implement those plans. So no, I haven't looked at them, but I would.
All right, excellent. What is your position on Canyon City pursuing the possibility of getting a community recreation center, something similar to a YMCA?
Ever since I was about 10 years old here, we've had one or two rec district or centers. And for some reason, they just never seem to go, but I think our youth need a place to go. I think it's a good idea.
Okay. How many Canyon City Council meetings have you attended or watched on TV?
Being totally honest with you, this is my first one to actually come to, and I believe every journey starts with the first step. I bring new ideas, not the old ruts, not what we've been doing for 30 years. If we're looking for a breath of fresh air, some new ideas, a go-getter, that's the reason I'm here. I want to try and implement what I've learned over my 60 years and apply it to helping make the city better.
Okay. And as far as recreational marijuana goes, are you for or against having recreational marijuana stores in city limits?
Totally against it. And I'll tell you my reason why. Medical marijuana, I believe, has a place for it. Medical marijuana has been proven to help and relieve a lot of symptoms. and controlled by doctors and different things. But recreational use, I don't believe in the city limits. I'm just not, I've seen too many bad things come out of people starting to use it and gatewaying into other things, and I know it doesn't go that way all the time, but I've just seen so much negative with recreational marijuana as far as cutting your inabilities to have conversations, to think, your enthusiasm, your zeal for life. It seems like you've become a couch potato, and I don't think we need any couch potatoes.
Thank you.
Ms. Gonzalez?
Good evening. I want to commend you on volunteering at the Boys and Girls Club. It's a great organization
Yes,
for
it
you to
is.
be spending some time with. I also believe that when you do, when you volunteer like that, it becomes a catalyst to keeping those children out of the field that you were in.
Yes.
So, thank you for doing that. My question is, how would you help address miscommunicated issues that we've spoken about here in council chambers to the public?
We had a lot of that, believe it or not, in DOC. What I found the most effective way to get your point across is, for one, you're straightforward, you say what you mean, and you mean what you say. All the, and pardon my French, mumbo-jumbo lawyer talk, 95% of Canyon City people don't want to hear that. If you can tell me, go sit in that chair for 5 minutes and I'll give you $1, and that's it, or give me this 20-minute speech on why I should, it's a no-brainer. I don't want all the mumbo-jumbo. So kind of what I heard tonight, the trash issue, could be, in my opinion, could be cleared up with some easy, straightforward language. It seemed like everybody had their own thought process and their own take on something, when we could say table, chair, floor, whatever. It's that simple, it's that easy. In prison, everything has to run on a time frame, and it's very black and white. Although we learned it's very gray. There's exceptions to every rule. Everything happens for a reason. A lot of these people, like you said, we don't have street and gutters on every street. We don't have an alley everywhere. So now we have exceptions. So I believe if you leave yourself open end on the back end to where you always have an exception to deal with things, you don't close yourself in. You don't sit here and box yourself in to where it's either left or right. I don't believe life is that way, and I believe communication is the best way. We've got a newspaper, a radio station, we've got volunteers, meeting with a lot of the store people, the business people, telling them, hey, this is what we want. They can go disseminate a lot easier than we can.
Thank you.
Mr. Kids?
Once again, thanks for applying for the
Yes, sir.
job. You said you haven't really looked at some of the master plans we have, but we have 3. The River Corridor, the Highway 50 Corridor, and Downtown Corridor. Which one of those 3, based on the fact that you've lived in Canyon City for quite a while, would you feel is the most important one to pursue?
The Main Street. And my reasoning would be, we need revenue. Businesses bring revenue. We need to fill up all these shops, or empty businesses down on Main Street. Every place I go, pretty much all the people are saying, Main Street's drying up, we don't have this, we don't have this. People want places to shop, places to eat. I believe Main Street would be our main focus for revenue and to start for position of 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. I think we're done.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for
Thank
coming. Throne. Hi, Brandon.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm wonderful.
I don't have to tell you that the microphone is there, so you're already doing a good
Yeah.
job. So welcome, and thanks for putting in your name.
Well,
And
thank
how we're going
you.
to do this is we give you 1 minute to talk a little bit about yourself, and then each one of the council will ask you questions. So you're on.
I don't know if 1 minute's enough, but Mayor and Council, thank you for having me here tonight. My name is Brandon Smith, 35 years old. I'm a Canyon City resident. I've lived here most of my life. I was married here. I raised children here, and I own a business at 508 Main. Gosh, you know, this is something that I wanted to do in November. I wanted to run, and I missed the cutoff by 20 days. So now I'm here for an appointed position. But, you know, I just feel like something's calling me to this seat, and I want to be part of change, and I want to be a teammate and make some changes. Leave some of the things the same, and just be a contributing factor to this city.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arguez, would you like to start?
One of the things that we did a while back, and I've asked this before of another person, we made a controversial issue with regards to the golf course, with regards to water rates. We had our reasons for do that. What did you see when we did that with regards to the future of Canyon City as positive or negative?
With the current water rights situation or the previous?
No, with the current one at the 4 Mile Golf Course.
At the 4 Mile Golf Course? So, well, I definitely feel like the development of the area out there is important to our city, and that, you know, the person of interest has definitely put money towards development, and us helping them is continuing development. And I'm sorry, was there another portion of the question that I'm forgetting?
I just thought what you thought would have been a positive that we did with that, or like some people said in the newspapers, the negative. They felt like we were giving away something that we weren't giving to the normal citizens, but yet we were giving it to this developer.
I feel like development, especially in our current situation with real estate, is very important, and I feel like development's drying up, and there's something that we've got to do to continue development. So I feel like it's a very positive thing.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Hi, Brandon.
Hello.
My question is, as a business owner with a very busy business, how would you handle people who want to talk about city issues while you're working? You have a large waiting area now where people can sit and visit, and if you hear a miscommunicated issues, how would you handle that?
Are you referring to barbershop talk?
Yes.
Because yes, unfortunately, I deal with that on a daily basis, being a barber. But you know, I feel like it's all day I'm fielding these misappropriated or uneducated questions, and it's just something that comes with the job, I feel, and it's hard to tell a customer or a client that they're wrong, but it's not hard to say things like, well, maybe you need to educate yourself on that situation a little bit more, or, you know, maybe there's something that you're missing, and just those types of reactions to that.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Hey, I'm really glad to see you here, especially someone in your age bracket. It's nice to have the younger crowd in here and being active in the community and making a difference for the better, so I appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
I do have a few questions. Have you familiarized yourself with any of the master plans that Canyon City has?
I have, actually. In fact, it's been something that I've tirelessly been doing. As far as vision for the city, is there anything specific that you want to speak about?
I just want to know how much research you've done.
You know, I did a lot of research on the Main Street corridor and building code, increasing revenues in many aspects. The recreation center that's coming, community events and foundations, the natural appearance and cleaning up, which we went over a lot tonight, safety, public safety, and the public safety turnover rate, utilizing and trying to squeeze revenue out of our natural resources, And then, of course, getting sound and accurate information for responsible decision-making for fiscal responsibilities and infrastructure.
Excellent. As far as the Community Recreation Center goes, what are your feelings on the city council on if they should pursue trying to get a recreation center in our area?
I definitely feel that we need to pursue a recreation center. I have 3 young children, and unfortunately, idle hands are the devil's playground, and I feel that there's way more things that we can do for our younger city residents. They are city residents, and I feel like I want them to be proud to live here and be proud to have something to do. I know there's some things coming in, like the bridge, and it would be interesting if we could utilize that with the rec center.
Okay. How many Canyon City Council meetings have you attended or viewed?
Unfortunately, I haven't attended very many in the last few years. I would probably say 10 in my entirety.
Okay. And as far as recreational marijuana is concerned, what are your feelings? Are you for having recreational marijuana stores in city limits? Or
I am not for recreational marijuana stores in city limits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hamrick?
Thank you, Brandon, for coming tonight and putting in your letter of interest to serve on this city council. One of the issues that we talked about tonight was the possibility of having a deer harvest. And I'm not so much interested in whether you're in favor or opposed to a deer harvest, but when there's roughly equal numbers of people on both sides of the issue that may have strong feelings, stepping back from that a little bit, how should a city council person resolve that issue?
Boy, that is a toughie. Obviously, as city council people, we're not here to make everybody happy. So at some point, I feel like it's got to be a feeling. It's got to be something that you have to just make a decision, and it goes one way or the other. You're not always going to make everyone love you, hate you. And as a business owner, I deal with that every day. You know, I can't make everybody happy as much as I try to keep my customer service at the highest rate. It's just, there's just some people you can't please.
Thank you. And are you on Facebook?
I am, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Bless you.
It was a sneeze.
There's nothing to sneeze at, Mr. Meisner.
If you're selected, remember what you just said there.
Well, unfortunately, I feel like in today's day and age, to run a business appropriately, you have to offer social media at some. However, I'm not in charge of my social media, so that's a wonderful thing.
Okay, my question's more in regards to stormwater. Just give me your philosophy or your concept in terms of how you would handle the stormwater issue with the fact that you'd need to generate more revenue to offset the expenses that are associated with taking care of stormwater.
Well, I feel like stormwater is definitely the issue of the decade here. And there is a lot of revenue that needs to be generated. I agree with the current council's decision on stormwater. However, the only thing that I would change would be to only bring up the city's percentage of code responsibility and not the county's.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Well, thank you, Brandon. Now we have run our course of candidates. So, Tony, would you escort them in at this time? You can just stay here, Brandon. Okay, what we're going to do is have all the candidates come in. We will then pass out ballots. You will vote. And the mayor only gets to vote to break a tie. And there's 5 of you, so I hope that doesn't happen.
Oh,
No.
goodness.
I want to thank you all for coming this evening. It has been a long evening for everybody. I'm very impressed with all the candidates that put their names in, and thank you. And to an old guy like me, I think that our future is very bright in Canyon City. Whoever doesn't make it, just continue to be involved and There will be a mayor's position open shortly. So, but I'm so very thankful, and the quality of all of you is amazing. It's been a really good night to talk to y'all. So what we're going to do today, right now, is I guess we're not going to vote to reject the whole panel, are we? No motion on that?
Excellent panels.
Excellent panel. We have already passed that. The ballots have been distributed, and the candidate having the highest number of votes shall fill the vacancy. And are we counting votes right now?
Greg Dorito, turn my mic on. You were the high vote getter.
I need a motion.
To go into executive session?
This is to make a
What are we
motion
doing?
to go ahead and formally appoint
Yeah.
Greg Dorito.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr.
Council,
Meisner? Go ahead. Mr. Meisner?
Mr. Mayor and Council, I move that we appoint Greg Dorito as the at-large council member for the current opening.
Second, Ms. Gonzalez. Any discussion on the motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote.
Okay, are we going to swear Mr. Dorito in right now? Okay, go ahead. Okay, number 15,
Doesn't he come up here?
you need to come up here, Greg.
He
You're
doesn't
not-
get a name tag.
You're not,
I was trying to see if I could miss something out.
No, you got an
Your
executive
meeting's
session
not
to
over.
attend.
I will need a motion and a second to move into executive session.
Mr. Mayor, I move that City Council hold an executive session to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, develop a strategy for negotiations, and/or instruct negotiators pursuant to CRS 24-6-4024E.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that motion? Would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Meisner?
Aye.
Councilmember Hamrick?
Aye.
Councilmember Jaquez?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Councilmember Dorito?
Aye.
Approved by unanimous vote. What's that? What is that time?
Okay,